Hey, John,
Aaron.
we made it.
It was hard for both of us, I'm sure. At least you're home.
Yes. Oops, hold on a second here. Need to get this on YouTube.
Really,
Hi, everybody. Is my sound working?
yeah, I think it's low on my side.
Is my sound working? John, I couldn't hear you.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Nope. Let's see.
I just turned mine up a little bit, so that's much better. I can hear you much better now. It's too cold to be in the water.
Somebody say something because I can't. I think I have my speakers
Can you hear
set
me?
wrong.
Can you hear me, Lee?
No, still can't hear. Okay, let's try something else.
Aaron, can you hear me?
Sure.
Just checking.
Now try.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yep.
Good.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Did everybody say they could come? Hopefully.
Boy, I hope so.
I know. I didn't see all the responses.
I said, John said yes. And Joe said yes. I didn't see one from Bob though, so I don't know.
Yeah, we just need 4, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, the minute said 5. So I don't know why.
Bob never responds, but he always shows up.
Yeah, he's heading into tax season though. Isn't that his busy
Oh,
time?
that's true, yeah. Could be his last meeting.
John, do you know, is the Democratic or is any of the town committees working on getting new members for us? You know?
No, I think we've let them know. We let the first select woman know that there's spots to be filled on a lot of boards and commissions, actually. But particularly this one, we don't, we've got 2 regulars, I think, and 3 alternates that need to be filled. We'll keep on that though, Lee. That's a good point.
I wonder if we could reach out to some of the old members and see if they want to come back.
I asked Bob Cook if he wanted to come back as a member of the,
Oh, that'd be good.
yeah,
That'd be
I'm
really
working
good.
on him.
Yeah, because we're kind of stuck if, we're kind of skating pretty thin for a
Very
quorum.
thin. Yeah,
What happens, Aaron, if we don't have a quorum and the thing can't stop? I mean, the town
Right.
functions can't stop, right?
no,
You can't start.
Hey, Bob, good to see you.
Hello,
Hi,
Now we can hear you.
can you hear me?
Now we
Yeah.
can.
do you hear us? Okay, good.
Yeah, I can now.
We just need one more.
All right.
I know Joe said he was coming. So,
Good.
yeah, we did get 5 that said that 5 confirmed.
Okay.
Hey, Loa, if it's okay with you, I would like to designate you as a co-host for the meeting. I am listed as a host, but just it's actually being a little funny and not letting me see who's raising their hands.
Okay.
So I would like to have a second set of eyes.
Okay, that's fine.
To let me know if you can see anyone.
Okay.
Well, do you see in attendees, Kayaloa,
I see,
2 hands raised?
yeah, I saw 2 hands raised.
Do you see the hands next to the individuals who are raising their hands?
No, I'm not seeing that. Oh, wait, here, if maybe, yeah, yes.
John is here.
Oh, John's,
Matthew, I'm going to promote him to a panelist.
Okay, I'll just keep this. Yes, I can see this if I keep it up. I'll keep it up.
But you can see hands raised. Who's raising their hand?
Yep, I can see the attorney Bilczek and Penny Penseria.
And their hands are raised. Okay.
Yes.
Not sure why it's not showing me. They're top at my list, so I'll just, if we get to public comment portion, I will start at the top of our list and go in order then to see who's looking for to speak.
And right. Okay. Yep. Okay. So we're 4. Yes.
1, 2,
Yes.
3, 4.
All right.
Yep.
All right. Great. Well, we'll open the January 10th, 2022 in the Wetlands Agency meeting at 7:07 p.m. So happy New Year, everyone.
Oh, thanks.
And our first agenda item is 21-34, 53 Winding Road. And I believe it looks like we have the applicant here. And this is, this was received at the last meeting.
Correct.
Now, it looks like the deck is in the wetland. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah, I think, and Aaron, should we let that applicant in?
Yes, I
Here,
will let Penny. Oh, did you? Thank you.
yeah, I did.
Excellent.
So,
Was it put in with a permit to install it, or was it installed without a permit originally?
The original deck?
Yeah,
I don't know. It was quite some time ago. So they're basically, I think they're rebuilding, basically replacing the existing deck in the same location.
it could affect the wetland though if they tear down the old deck and put up the new deck, and if it's in the wetland. I don't know.
I think it was hard to see. I didn't actually see where the wetland is. I might have missed something, but is there a plan with the wetland boundaries on the application? I just saw the deck in the pictures.
Yeah, I think there was.
Yep, I'll share what we have here.
Okay. But I think that's a good question. It wasn't clear what the process between getting rid of the deck and then putting in the new deck and how that might impact the wetlands. Oh, you're
Penny?
muted.
Penny, you're muted.
Oh, she's still,
Yeah, we still can't hear you. Kayla, I will screen share the documents that were submitted with the application for reference to the commission, or this is the GIS mapping.
right.
This markings here indicate wetlands as they're shown on the town wetlands map.
Okay,
This is the existing deck, lower portion, and you'll see the elevated portion.
right. Okay, so I did see what was submitted.
Yes, so this portion is being removed. These are being rebuilt. This is being demoed, and then just stairs to grade here.
Okay.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So I bought the house like 10 years ago. It already had the deck on it. My entire property, my whole house is built on wetlands because it was built in the 1970s. So the whole thing is wetlands. It's not like I'm going into the wetlands. I'm on wetlands. Basically, I think I talked to John at the place, the house probably wouldn't be built if it was built today.
Okay.
So the deck that's on there now is kind of like falling apart. There's a lot of rotten wood. So it needs to be replaced. So I'm not making it bigger or anything. I'm just taking it down and putting a new one up. The exact same size.
So does anybody have questions for the applicant about the process?
Aaron, could you put up the plans again
Yeah.
and just scroll down to the picture of where the deck is on the back of the house? I just want to get another brief because I'm having trouble finding my documents for tonight, and I just
Yeah, that's what I
don't
was
have those
working on too.
documents.
It's a raised ranch. So I have like a door and a slider off my dining room and my kitchen that go onto the upper deck. And then there's like a lower deck with a slider out the back door.
Right. I'm sorry. I just wanted to see what was around it and further down the slope towards, further into the wetlands. That's all. And that
There
answers
used
my
to be
question.
that brown spot, like used to be a pool, like an above ground pool.
Right.
It looks like it's lawn now, Penny. How far back does it go till you get into non-lawn?
Probably like 60 feet.
Okay,
I mean, but even my lawn is like wettish, like
right.
just because where the house is, yeah. But there's like a lot of property. There's a stream like pretty far back from the house along the side there.
John, you've been out there, right? Have you been out there?
No, actually, I have not.
Oh, you haven't? Okay.
Nope.
Excuse me, Penny, you're removing this portion?
I'm removing everything that's there and just rebuilding the same thing.
So this lowest level deck will be rebuilt as well?
Yeah, that I think we're just gonna put a cement slab there. Just a flat cement slab as opposed to decking.
So this is,
I think it says that on the plan. He wrote cement on the bottom.
um,
No.
so this is being demolished and not rebuilt. So this is a reduction in,
The one with the red X is already gone. That was where the
Yeah,
pool,
that's
that
gone.
was the pool deck.
so these stairs to grade are really the,
Those stairs will.
everything else is a replacement and this is a new structure?
Right, because the stairs, the red stairs that come from the upper deck were there. They went onto that pool deck. So when the pool got removed, there was like a 4-foot drop. So we removed the deck and just put a little side stair there. So there would be no drop.
Okay.
But those are all gonna come down. There'll just be one set of stairs down from the deck.
Well,
It
I
looks
guess,
like to me-
Let me know what
repla-
you'd like, which page you'd like to see. Sorry.
No, it just seems like to me, you're just replacing what's there. The only thing which I don't really have a concern for anymore is that, would any of the debris kind of filter into the wetlands, but it doesn't seem like, I just don't see any need for any silt fence or anything, but maybe other members do. Seems pretty simple to me. I mean, you're tearing down a deck and you're just replacing what's already there, the same footprint. And you're pulling away the wood, and if you're putting
Yeah,
cement
they're-
down, and maybe a little bit of dirt displacement, but I can't see it being significant unless, John, do you have any opinion on it? Because I really, it seems pretty straightforward to me.
Which John are you speaking?
You're John
me?
DeLauro.
I don't have any, no, I don't. I mean, it's not a steep slope there. It's all existing. It's pretty flat. It's grassy. You get to the little wooded area. I mean, the silt fence, you could put it up, but it's not going to do anything. There's no slope to run anything away. I mean, I think you
Gotcha.
could ask her, I can't remember exactly what they were going to do for footings. They're going to take that out. They're going to replace the footings. I'm not sure if they're going to, it's wet there. I think I may have suggested, the footings that I'd like to use that in sort of a wet condition, that there's no excavation at all, but I can't, I'm sorry, maybe you can help me here that what are the footings going to wind up being?
I think he's putting in, I think it's 4 on there. He's just gonna dig with a shovel, like no excavation equipment. And then the dirt's just gonna remain there because it's just gonna get flattened out like around it.
Okay, there you go. Yeah. So he's got a couple of Bigfoots. Yeah.
Because the footings and the poles that are there, like the deck was not really properly built, like the beams going up to hold the upper deck are not even up to code, like size wise.
Right.
That's why he's replacing it.
He's got Bigfoots because the soil is probably not the best soil. So he's got a spread footing. So he's down 42 or 48 inches. So he's going to hand dig those.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. I couldn't even, thank you.
And the cement slab, is that going to be a pretty easy thing to put in? Is that
Yeah,
required?
he's not bringing a cement truck down or anything. They're just gonna hand barrel like a wheelbarrow, bring them down
Okay.
into the backyard and pour it in by wheelbarrow.
Okay,
Because I did ask that. He said, no, he's not gonna bring a truck down because he doesn't want to ruin the driveway or anything else, so.
okay. Are there questions, other questions from agency members?
Oh.
So this was received last time. I guess we can act on it tonight.
Yes, we can.
I guess with what we've discussed, some of it, like what's going to be done isn't on the plans, like the fact that there isn't going to be equipment and the fact that it's being hand dug. So I think it would be nice to at least have that in the record as being acknowledged. Does that sound reasonable?
Does to me.
Just because we generally, want to have some record of our expectations of what we're voting on. All right. Someone want to make,
Kayla, excuse me, you can add those as conditions.
right, that's what
Okay.
I'd like to do. But so would someone like to make a motion?
I move we approve application 21-34 with the conditions that the applicant add to the drawings that have been submitted to the agency, that there's not going to be any heavy equipment used, and all the excavations will be hand done.
I'll second.
All right, any further discussion needed? All right, all those in favor?
I
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right. You are approved with those conditions. Good luck with
Okay,
it.
thank you so much.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Okay, we have 10 minutes. So do you think it's okay if we start our next application?
I think
Yeah.
so. Yep.
Okay, great. All right. Next application is 21-36, One River Edge Road Farm. We have a regulated activity permit to do an additional garage with living space above an existing garage within the 100-foot review.
Yeah.
And do we have,
Frank Kling is joining us as a panelist,
Okay,
the property owner.
okay. Great. So for the agency members, and now we have the applicant, are there questions you have for him, them? I'm just pulling up the plans.
I can share those for you, Kayla.
Yeah, so it looks like one part of this addition is within 25 feet of the wetland, is that right? I think.
This is the addition here.
Yeah. Yes, yes.
Frank, you could go ahead and present your application to the commission. Can you hear us?
He's on mute.
You're gonna have to unmute yourself.
So I'm going to have Lynn step in. She is the CEO of this project. I'm just a schlep. Hang on, please.
Sorry, I don't know why I've been on the meeting the whole time, but is it not showing to you that I was on the meeting on another computer?
Same with me.
Okay, well, anyway, let's see, I think the wetlands are where the flags are down in back.
Mhm.
And the addition is going both south and west, so not headed down toward the back.
So what you're pointing out is you're you're bumping out this part that you've got, that Aaron is pointing to, is that right?
Yes. Yes, it is. So it's existing as a 2-car garage, and our proposal is to take down what's there and rebuild, but have it be a 3-car garage and have it come forward a little bit toward Neck Road, which is, I guess, mostly south, and then have it go west a little bit toward MCM, rental property 144 Neck.
Okay, and I could be missing it, but it's, and I think it's pretty flat, so do you have a sense of how the construction is going to impact? You're pretty close to the wetland. Do you have a sense of the slopes and how the water's going to flow?
Yeah, so this actually, it slopes quite a bit after the patio. It's level to the patio, and then it slopes actually quite far down below in the back, which is beyond those wetland flags. And currently under the garage is just a slab. And so our intention is to just continue with there to be slab, no foundation at all, just build upon the slab.
And there's living space above, right? So it's going to be 2-story.
And the proposal is for living space above. Yeah.
Do you have any pictures by any chance? Or I didn't try to pull it up on Google Earth or anything.
I put in one picture as part of my application that shows our house with the 2
Maybe I missed it.
neighbors, the Swans and the Morans.
This is the layout
Yeah.
for the new addition. Let's see.
That's the picture.
This is roughly the wetland line. Mrs. Kling, are you proposing to extend the driveway at all alongside this garage, or are you just expanding it to reach the garage bays and nothing else? I think that's to this.
Yeah, I suppose the driveway would go to all three bays. So if there was a third bay, there would probably be some additional asphalt to get to that third bay.
But nothing alongside the new structure?
No.
It's hard to tell from the picture where it changes from lawn to actual non-lawn.
Oh, it's all lawn. Our whole yard is lawn.
Okay, so if we go to, so if we go back to that picture, all that area that's kind of brown, where it looks like it's close to where the line is, that's all lawn?
Oh,
right
those
there?
are trees. Those are trees that have lost their leaves.
That's what I thought. Okay, so from where the trees are to where your house is now, how far is that about? It looks close to me.
5 feet maybe, because I
Yeah.
think the probably the other side of the trees is where the 15-foot setback is, the side yard setback. And then if a garage bay is about 8 feet, maybe the 15 and the 8 gets us maybe around 25 feet from where the corner of the garage currently ends to our side yard.
I'm not sure I followed all that, but so are you going to have to take down any trees to build the addition?
I don't think so. If we do, maybe one pine tree, but I don't think we're going to have to take anything down.
I don't know.
Aaron, if you can go back to one of the prior attachments that might show a zoomed in version of that side yard.
You're referring to the site plan?
I don't know. Can you scroll through the pictures that I attached by any chance?
Do you mean pictures or plans? Because I only saw that one image of the area.
I guess it's more a plan than a picture.
Okay,
All
okay,
right.
just, they're in separate sections, so I just wanted to make sure we're.
Okay. Yeah, that's the one I was thinking of, up at the top where it shows the edge of the garage and the side yard variance. So the one bay that would get added would come out right about to the edge of where the patio is. Yeah, that would line up.
So you're saying some of the trees are in the upland? They're not necessarily in the wetland? You said there were trees in this area that
Oh,
were.
yeah, the trees, that whole part is all trees, all the way down that side. And then there are woods back there.
I'll go through this is an older map. I believe this was what was used when the patio was put in, this site plan.
Right.
How long ago was that?
Is it 2012, maybe?
Yeah, I think that's what it says on the
Okay.
application.
There's a receipt that was received. I see 08.
I know I attached as part of my documents the letter of the approval when we did it then.
Mm-hmm.
It was 2012.
Okay.
I don't remember it.
But I think, so I don't know, and it's not, so do you know how much disturbance you're gonna have on this for this construction project?
So, well, on my application, I thought virtually nothing because all they're going to do is put slab under. I don't know what the depth of the slab is, but I don't think there'll be much disturbance at all. Nothing down below at all.
Construction access is from the existing garage?
From the
Or,
existing
excuse me,
driveway.
existing driveway.
Yeah. Nothing will have to go down and back at all.
You're not showing any sedimentation and erosion control measures on this site plan? And that would be something that the agency is interested in establishing to limit the amount of disturbance and any potential erosion or stockpiling in the vicinity of the wetland. So
Okay.
that would be something that I would recommend to the
Okay.
agency. Should you wish to move forward with this application, a potential condition of establishing sediment and erosion controls at a minimum of 30 feet, I think, from the wetland line.
Okay.
And that would essentially limit disturbance to this area here.
Okay. I can, yeah, we'll put that on.
And
Not
yeah,
sure.
because there isn't really that much detail about what's going on construction wise, or it sounds like it is sloped and it's just not clear how there's clearly going to be disturbance because you are doing construction, you're taking away or adding on. So having more detail would be helpful.
Okay.
Other comments for the applicant or questions? And we don't need to act on this. We can act on this tonight, but we don't need to act on this tonight.
And
People feel comfortable waiting to see a revised version. Thoughts?
I'm comfortable waiting to see the final version.
Okay. Anybody
So-
else?
So the additional information that you're looking for is erosion control actually on that last map that you had up?
yes,
Okay. And some reference to how it slopes down?
So on your application, you have Tom Stevens as your engineer.
Mm-hmm.
He knows how to do all of that. So you could ask him, but yes, we need to see how your property is situated topographically, so we can understand how the water is going to move across the landscape with respect to any changes you're making with your construction project.
Okay.
And having the sediment and erosion control measures in place will help protect the wetlands since you're so close.
Okay. So one of the documents I attached was the survey that he had done. Does that not show what you're looking for?
Let me,
Are you talking about Thomas Stevens and Associates or Anderson Engineering and Surveying Associates?
oh, sorry, it was Anderson.
Oh, okay.
Yep, it was Anderson. Yep, Anderson Engineering. Sorry. I didn't see any of the sedimentation and erosion control, and I didn't see anything indicating how the water is going to move across the landscape. So maybe I missed that.
No, I don't know. Maybe it's not on there. I'm not sure. So an indication of how the water will move across the landscape is the third thing.
Right.
So in other words, we're looking for like topography lines and where the hill starts from the lawn going downhill.
Okay.
And that'll just help us be better able to understand how your activity is going to impact the wetlands.
Okay. I think I can do that. I'm not sure. I'll try.
If you have any questions, call John, John.
Yeah, John will help you.
I've actually met with John a few times and he has helped me, but we didn't discuss that kind of detail, so I'll go back and add some more detail.
Okay.
All right, well, that'd be great. And then we can revisit this in February and continue the conversation. And
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so we are going to pause our regular applications and move on to continue our public hearing for application 21-31, 35 Cottage Road. So I guess do we need to vote, or can we just open the meeting, open the public hearing, or continue the public hearing?
Sure, you can make a motion to open the public hearing. I'm gonna start transferring our applicant and all of our,
Well,
I move that we open the public hearing.
all right. Everybody second?
Second.
All right, great. All in favor? I think we're all in favor.
Aye.
All right, so public hearings opened at 7:37 p.m. on January 10th, 2022. As people are coming in, I just wanted to briefly kind of outline where we're at. So last month, we had the applicant present and in detail all the different parts of the project. We had an intervener. We have an environmental intervener who then asked some questions, and we had a few comments from the public. So tonight, what I would like to do is start with the intervener and then hear from the public, because they've been very patiently waiting for their chance to comment on this project.
if I may just, Kayla, before we get going, I just want to verify our professionals who need to come over as panelists. If either Marjorie or Bill could just let me know who I'm missing, and I'm happy to promote them, but or individuals, if they could raise their hands.
Expert George Logan.
George Logan is here. Marjorie, you had other individuals?
Hey, good evening. Yes, I do.
Good evening.
Eric Davison, our soil scientist, wetland biologist, and wildlife scientist is here. I don't know if Abigail Adams has arrived yet. She had a competing meeting. John Matthews, our architect, while he will not be discussing this tonight, is a member of the team, and Michael W. Clemens is a member of our team.
Great.
I think we're in good shape then. Thank you.
And Madam Chair, I know, and we all look forward to the interveners and the members of the public, but Marjorie Shansky for the applicant simply wanted to indicate that we filed some materials this afternoon that I would like to simply enumerate for the record. We filed a letter from our soil scientist, Rich Snarsky, dated January 10th, today. We had Mr. Snarsky go back and verify the wetland delineation after Mr. Logan's letter. So this letter that has been submitted today verifies that the wetland delineation is as originally presented for 35 Cottage Road, sorry. I've also submitted today to the record the December 22nd, 2021 letter of approval from the State of Connecticut Department of Public Health for the subsurface sewage disposal system. So that has now been approved by the town and by the state. I also submitted to the record a copy of Best Development Practices Conserving Pool Breeding Amphibians in the Northeast, which is written by Doctors Calhoun and Clemens, which is referred to in Mr. Logan's letter at the last meeting, and which needs in its totality to be part of this record. And finally, today, I submitted Eric Davison's updated resume, and you'll understand why when we resume our commentary at the February meeting. Mr. Ott does have some comments that are also responsive to Mr. Logan's recent letter, but I defer to the chair as to when you'd like to receive that commentary, which is also very brief and responsive. But in any case, we are here and we are delighted to hear everything that's offered this evening. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, I think we really haven't heard from the intervener, and so I would like to at least start with them, and then we'll see how we go. But so do we have, there he is, Attorney Bilczek. Yes, so I had, you spoke last time, and you filed this petition to be the environmental intervention. And so just to start us out, could you explain the basis of the intervention?
Yes, Your Honor. Basically, there are, in the intervention, in the filing, basically, once again, you filed that we claimed that there was a baseline data regarding the site's regulated resources. But it was limited to water quality data, aquatic vegetation, aquatic pond biometry, and substrate. Also, there's a lack of analysis for short-term and long-term impacts on regulated resources for erosion, sedimentation, stormwater runoff, and septic system vegetation. All right, there's also a lack of analysis for potential effects from the proposed development upon vernal pool, obligate species, specifically utilize the pond for on-site breeding. And there's a reasonable likelihood of adverse impact, physical impact, and degradation of the pond's water quality from inadequately treated runoff. And similarly, there's going to be a degradation of water's quality from inadequately treated septic system, let's say. There's also reasonable likelihood of elimination of the spotted salamander breeding population as a result of both physical degradation of the breeding pond's water quality and elimination of the adjacent suitable upland habitat utilized by the spotted salamanders. I think that, in a nutshell, is good enough to get intervention status.
Okay, that's great. And then I guess what we can do is, we heard from the applicant last time, so perhaps your expert, I believe that's Mr. Logan somewhere. Is he still here?
I don't see him on the screen here, Madam Chairman. However, Michael Ott was supposed to file responses prior to this meeting, and Attorney Shansky says he's available. So I don't know if Mr. Logan would like to have Mike Ott explain or what was asked of him at the last meeting, or go ahead with his presentation.
Madam Chair, Marjorie Shansky, we will be listening this evening primarily and responding at the next meeting. Thank you.
Attorney Bilczek, George Logan did just sign in as a panelist. Again, he was on earlier and must have gotten disconnected, I see, but he is here, so.
Well, once again, I really, Madam Chairman, that we asked specific questions. Attorney Ott was supposed to get back prior to this meeting. He did not. He's present here today. I think unless Logan would rather proceed with his presentation, my person, I'd rather hear Mr. Ott any changes or explanations for the questions that were raised at the last hearing.
Okay, so it's a little hard to hear you, but it sounds like you
Cutting out.
you don't want to present. But I guess at the last meeting, my recollection is there was questions asked, and of course they're responding, but you have also since that time submitted some more detailed documentation. So it's unclear to me. So do you don't want to present that?
No. Well, I think if we just received that material just today at about 4:30. And I'm just saying that we would like to move forward with our presentation. I'd like to hear what Mr. Logan has to say, because he's the one that raised the questions and was expecting some response. And
Okay, that's perfect.
So.
Right. So if Mr. Logan would like to speak, then that would be great. And I'm assuming he's here. Really?
Muted right
He's
now.
here. I'm unclear if he's. Ask him to unmute.
So.
Okay, here we
There
go.
he is.
So just on cue, we lost power here at our home.
Oh.
So that was the case. So now you're on my cell phone, and hopefully we're running on backup here. So again, I guess I'll just go into my presentation and sort of talk about some of the information that we presented the last time. The one thing that, again, George Logan for the record, REMA Ecological Services. We have submitted 2 reports, one just prior to the last month. I believe that was dated sometime in early December. And then just in early January, we submitted another report, which was very specific to one potential issue, with which one I will start. Also, just for the record, I have submitted my resume. You folks know my credentials and my qualifications. I am a registered soil scientist, professional wetland scientist. I'm certified as a senior ecologist through the Ecological Society of America, and also I'm a wildlife biologist. So the first issue I wanted to raise, and unfortunately I cannot share my screen, which I was hoping to do, but you folks have the second letter, which I believe was from, January 3rd, yes. And in that letter, I had some attachments, and I saw something that kind of raised my interest to try to come to some conclusion of what I was seeing. Attached to that particular letter, the second letter that we're talking about now, is the existing conditions plan that the applicant has put into the record. It is labeled as PS-1. It was a property and topographic survey by Anderson Engineering. And in that report, what I did was I highlighted 2 wetland boundaries that apparently were not coincident with each other. So they're apparently in conflict with each other. The one that I highlighted in green that you might have in front of you, again, I can't show it to you, appears to be the one that's associated with the current delineation that the applicant has submitted, which I understand Mr. Snarski has verified by a letter that we received this afternoon. He went out, I guess, on the 6th, I think, and submitted a letter dated with today's date. And that's great. That's wonderful, but it still doesn't answer the question. And the question is, what is the blue line? The blue line appears to be the wetland delineation that was used during the application procedures process for the property next door, 41 Cottage. And so there's a conflict there. And the other conflict is, if you see the second figure, if you will, that I submitted with that report, you will see that there was an elevation. Doesn't have a date, so we don't know exactly when that date was. So it could have been in the high season, but it has an elevation of the pond of 5.2, which is somewhat disconcerting because it is above the elevation that the applicant has used in their plans as being the mean high water. And 5.2 might not indeed be the mean high water, unless this was just by happenstance happened to be the mean high water of 5.2, which would be highly doubtful. So I still have a question, and I'll just leave it hanging there, and the applicant will hopefully be able to answer it. I have two delineations potentially done by two different soil scientists. One line is significantly above in elevation from the existing line that's used for the application, which kind of hugs elevation 5 a little bit, maybe a little below. So, and this one is obviously at least 2 or 3 feet above that in some places. That's a little bit of an issue. And of course, the 5.2 would mean that the wetland boundary might be even higher than the green line that showed on the applicant's plans. So it's not that I don't trust Mr. Snarski. It's not that I don't trust Eric Davidson and their delineation. But unfortunately, in a situation like this, unless there's a very specific and coherent answer from the applicant that satisfies my curiosity, I would ask that the commission just hire their own person, their own soil scientist to come and sort of figure out what exactly has happened here, because that's a conflict and it raises, in my mind, a serious concern. Anyhow, so that's that, and we'll probably hear from the applicant a little later. The other things that I want to say, and I'll try to go through as quickly as possible, but there are, in my view, some issues here that need to be figured out. And that is, these are the issues that I brought up in my first report that was dated December 6th. If you recall from that report, in the first page or so, second page, I basically outlined what I thought were some things that were missing. I thought there was some lack of baseline data. I thought there was a lack of analysis of potential short-term and long-term impacts. And again, it was my opinion that these things were things that were necessary in order to figure out what's going on at the pond, and would allow us to understand whether there would be some long-term impacts to the regulated resources. And so what were those issues? The lack of baseline, well, I think Eric provided a good amount of information in his report, and that's fine, but you know, as they say, the devil's in the details. So as I started looking through, I said to myself, you know, because of the fact that we have a pond here that's a closed system, it's a groundwater fed pond. We figured out that it's probably deeper than 5 feet. We'll talk about that in a minute. So it's receiving stormwater, and it's also receiving, because it's ground fed, in my opinion, effluent from a septic system on 41 Cottage Road, which was just constructed, and also from the proposed one on 35. And I'll explain why I think that's the case. So getting some baseline surface water quality sampling would have been, I think, important, would have allowed sort of a proper evaluation of what the relative sensitivity of this regulated body is. Is it a eutrophied system already? Is it a mesotrophic system? Is it, what kind of levels of nutrients do we have? Because it's really the nutrients that are sort of at the top of the list of my concerns, and then secondarily other constituents of runoff. So that would have allowed us to get an idea. The pond depth was estimated at 5 feet or more. From what I understand now, especially from our attorney Bill, he has an affidavit that tells us that the previous property owner dug that down to, enhanced it at some point 30, 40 years ago to a depth of 15 feet or more. And I think I concur with that, because I looked at some aerial photographs, archival aerial photographs, and I saw that there was actually 2 stages of development. There was a smaller pond there back in the 60s, and then that was expanded, I think, around the 70s, which would be the right timeline. He also said that he stocked it with fish. Well, there might be fish there, and I think that's why I questioned whether or not the dip netting that was done in the scene survey, which is good. That's, we don't see that happening as often, and so I applaud Eric for doing that. But that didn't probably get us everything that's in there, so we don't know exactly, because if the pond is more than 5 feet, then obviously there might be some other things that we couldn't figure out. I also noticed that, typically when I do a pond, I want to not only look at the amphibian or the herptiles there, and so we know a little bit about the herptiles, amphibians and reptiles, but also I always like to have an idea of what the primary aquatic inverts are, because that gives me an idea of water quality. Also gives me, sheds a little more light on the total ecology of the pond, which I think is a bit lacking here. Submerged aquatic vegetation was another issue, and there's a couple of reasons for that. I did look at some aerial photographs from Google Earth, and I noticed that there seemed to be sort of a profile of some aquatic vegetation, submerged aquatic vegetation around the rim, especially on the northern side. And also I saw one of the photographs that Eric had provided, I think it was photo 3, and it showed that there seems to be some aquatic vegetation. Why is that important? Because in a situation like we have here, where you seem to have a embedded vernal pool habitat in part of the pond, even though you have other amphibians, that aquatic vegetation is important for the dynamics, the predatory prey dynamics of the pond's amphibian population and the invertebrates too. So going on, I did notice that usually when we produce a wetlands assessment report or impact analysis report, we have a proposed conditions section. We didn't have that here. Not sure why, but that's sort of a typical thing we like to see. And then looking at the stormwater management system, and I unfortunately don't have the plans in front of me right now. It would take me a little time to get it, so I'm going off a little top of my head. Typically what happens is the applicant tries to comply with the recommendations in the 2004 Stormwater Quality Manual by DEEP, and there's some guidance in there and some criteria that we all try to follow. And one of them, of course, is the making sure that we can provide the water quality volume, which is, you used to call it the first flush, but basically it's the water that runs off the surfaces of the land to your catchment area from a 1-inch storm. And typically that translates to about 85 to 9% of the rain that falls from the sky in a given year, except this past year, where we had 2-year storms back to back, as you recall. So the bottom elevation of the primary treatment system that the applicant has, and that is for the water quality volume, and that is this constructed wetland that's kind of surrounds the pond on the south side and goes east and west a little bit. They've sized it and they've designed it in a way to trap that water quality volume. Do I find anything wrong with that? No, that's the way to do it. So the bottom of that particular constructed wetland is set, I believe, at elevation about 3.5, and the top of the berm, which is going to be just off the edge of the delineated wetland as it sits right now on the plan, is at 5 feet. So that means that it's close to the mean high water, or depending on where the mean high water is. Again, I question whether it might be higher. It might be lower than that. So what happens is when the pond is its high water capacity, which would be the spring season for the most part, sometimes in the fall too, when the leaves are down and evapotranspiration goes down. That means that that particular constructed wetland will be full of water. It will be at elevation 5 or pretty close to it. And therefore, if you have a storm that comes in that's carrying the water quality volume, and that area is full, is that there's going to be a complete bypass, and all that water will be completely untreated, or minimally treated, and end up in the pond. So that's an issue, and I think it's a significant issue. Now, as you might remember from the report, if you read it, I'm sure you did. The stormwater quality manual guidance is that you provide the water quality volume. It's ready there to receive the water quality volume during a storm. And then 48 to 72 hours later, my cat tries to climb up on me. Sorry about that. It's afraid. No lights here, so she's at my feet. The water quality volume is doesn't have anywhere to go. So that area hasn't drained within 48 to 72 hours. So if you have back-to-back storms, or if that area is full, you have limited hydraulic residence, and that's an issue. All right, now another main issue that I wanted to talk about has to do with the septic systems. And I know that's kind of a little bit of a contentious issue. I know I've been in the recipient end of when I've been intervened upon, if you will. And here's the issue with the septic systems. The septic systems have to be engineered in a specific way in order to be compliant with the standards of the health code, right? So, and that's very important. So there are certain criteria that has to happen. But what, in essence, the health code is trying to do, and giving these standards for design of septic systems, is to meet the water quality standard for drinking water, not necessarily for surface water in general. So, for instance, one of the things that I mentioned in my report is the drinking water standard for possibly the nutrient that's most of concern to us, because it affects aquatic systems, is nitrogen, and in particular nitrogen, and some lesser extent ammonia and phosphorus. So the drinking water standard, and that's the only one that you see in there, is 10 milligrams per liter, and that's a health code issue. It's a drinking water, and it's related to the blue baby syndrome, as you might recall. But the issue is that this particular pond is considered, if you look at the GIS, unless otherwise indicated, is a Class A water body. And in the state, we have an anti-degradation policy, which means we have to be careful not to degrade the water quality and bump it out of a Class A. Now, it's not particularly well defined by DEP what a Class A water body is. There's certain things that I can talk about. It has to basically be, doesn't necessarily have to be a pristine area, but it has to meet certain land use qualifications. But the USCPA has done for us, has published some nutrient criteria for our region. They're draft. They've never been basically put full force, but they've been draft for 15, 20 years now. And I think most people realize that there's a bulk of data that's behind that criteria that's been done throughout the United States. So I can talk about that, but I won't, because it will take too long. But that nutrient criteria for nitrate plus nitrite, so NO2 and NO3, is 0.3 milligrams per liter. That's the concentration. So it's a big difference between 10 milligrams per liter, which is the drinking water standard, and this other criteria for related to Class A waters. Now, the issue is that you have basically criteria on one hand that are more for drinking water quality, but it doesn't relate to, if you will, the wetland code, or making sure that our wetlands and watercourses are not degraded. Now, I've been doing water quality sampling of water bodies and flowing streams oh gosh, I've been doing this for, being consultant and for about 34 years. And I think I've probably been doing water quality sampling for at least 25 to 30 years. Started way back. And what I found is when you have a water body or a stream that's of good quality, and there's other indicators that I look at, that my nitrate levels are never above 0.5. Once in a while, they inch towards 1 milligram per liter, and very often less than 0.5 milligrams per liter. So as you probably know, nitrate nitrogen is not, so it's not plentiful in nature because it's very quickly utilized by plants, for instance, in algae. It's something that's basically produced by us as humans, and it's a very fast-acting fertilizer. And what happens if you get a lot of it into a water body, especially one like this, which is unique in a sense, and I'll explain, you can lead to algal proliferation, you can reduce oxygen levels, you can smother habitat niches, and you can reduce prey availability for the aquatic organisms, especially the reptiles that are there. So what makes this particular pond a little bit unique? Let's go somewhere else. So very often I'm asked the question from commissioners and, as I said, sometimes by interveners when I'm on the applicant side, is what about the septic systems? What impact do the septic systems going to have? And very often I can say, not much at all. Why? Because, we have wetlands with organic soils and great denitrification quotient that can happen. We have trees with deep roots and shrubs, and all of that nitrate is just going to basically be sopped up by the wetland and denitrified by microorganisms in the anaerobic environment of wetland soils, because there's organic matter there, and that's necessary. And whoop, here my lights just came back, but I'll just continue as I am right here. So in essence, in most cases, you have a lot of dilution because you have a stream that has, a large watershed and a lot of dilution capacity, or a river, or you have a large wetland. Here, you don't have any of that stuff. First, the pond, as I said, is an embayment. It's an isolated system. It doesn't have really any through flow, at least surface flow. Very small watershed. It's mostly dependent on these groundwater inputs from the surroundings. And second, it doesn't have a wetland fringe. So if this pond had a wetland fringe that was substantial, at least to the size of what they're trying to do with their stormwater wetland, and if there were trees with deep roots, I wouldn't be so worried. But I am worried in this particular case. And there's two reasons for that. One, we have an existing septic system, and now we have a proposed septic system. And if you look at the, I'm wondering if I should try to get back online so that I can share something. Well, let me continue, and if I need to, I will. So what I did recommend, oh, by the way, the soils. So they have a septic system, and I looked at the test pits, and there are 3 test pits that probably are the ones that are most critical. Test pit 4, 5, and 6, and that's in that northern area next to the pond. And they didn't find any water. But if you look at the test pits, one of the things you see is that they have, for the most part, coarse materials, medium sand, sandy gravel, medium sand, sand with gravel. Those are some of the things that they talked about. So these are Hinkley soils. They're pretty consistent with the Hinkley.
Everybody lose him?
Did anybody else lose him?
Yeah, he's gone, I think. Hopefully he's walking to his computer. He's gonna get on his computer instead, maybe.
Yeah. That's a bummer.
That was all about the pond, correct? What
Yes.
what exactly came in at 4:30?
Other documentation.
Okay.
It's in your email, Joe, if you
Yeah,
probably haven't had a chance to check your email.
Oh,
Yeah, I
Yeah.
emailed it to you, but I recognized that it was pretty late in the day.
I'll
to-
check now.
Yeah, well, yeah.
I got 3 computers going.
I got 2 and one of them's not working very well, but
Okay. Oh, is he back? Let's see.
not yet.
Okay. Well, we can give him a minute. I think he's had a challenging evening.
Madam Chairman, while George Logan is trying to get back online, maybe I can go over some of the part of the application. I was reviewing it and going over my clients. There's a couple of things that I just want to point out. Since this application was filed.
Excuse me, Attorney Bilczek, could you turn your volume up? We're having a really hard time hearing you.
Or get closer or speak louder, one or the other.
Thank you.
Jumping through the screen. Can you hear me now? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Under the application, section 23H, the scenic road application, my understanding that there was an application filed for a scenic road, which includes part of the Boston Post Road and Cottage and Mill. And I just wanted to bring that to the commission. I don't know how it's going to affect, but there is now an application for it. And because of the application, it states no when it was filed. 23B of the application states that there were no proposals or applications that had been submitted for the site. Once again, this is in the wetlands. I don't know, it's a generic question. However, some of you do know, maybe you don't know, that an application was filed to change this site as part into the from residential to the transition zone, which was denied by the zoning commission. Under application question number 23E, the applicant states that there's no unique habitat. I think as Mr. Logan will go on to explain, or as he partially has explained already, we beg to differ. Once again, there's the spotted salamanders. Also, there's fish in the pond. There's also migratory birds that use this pond. Question number 23F of the application. The application did not report any historic site on the property. Not that it's part of your purview, but it's part of your inland wetlands application. However, I did learn from the prior owner, it's part of my affidavit that I submitted. This used to be the old Madison stagecoach center. It's been there for over 200 years. The property, the house itself, according to the applicant, is going to be demolished. It's a historic site, and I don't know, why they're demolishing it. And once again, it goes to the issue of whether or not we're here to save historic sites here in Madison. It was the Madison Stagecoach Station. It's been there for over 200 years. Application to question number 15, alternatives. This proposal protects the surface and groundwater. The applicant states that this particular proposal protects surface and groundwater resources, but does not affect the inland wetland and water courses. I think Mr. Logan, once he comes back on, will further explain why we disagree. George, are you there?
Yes, I'm really sorry. I guess I had a problem. I don't know what the last thing you heard me talking about was.
On the nitrates.
All right, so
Where they
I
flow.
I basically asked the client to use the nitrogen dilution model because that's the only mechanism that's going to renovate the septic system nitrates. And I basically pointed them to a publication that was produced by the Connecticut DEP in 2006. It says that it's guidance for design of large scale on-site wastewater renovation systems. But in there, it basically tells you that the underlying principles in the modeling that they provide and that they have in there will apply for all septic systems regardless of size. So this is the only way that we can get an idea of what the concentration of nitrates is going to be as it flows into the pond. So that was the issue. The issue was that I believe, based on what I know now, with the two septic systems we have, with these particular conditions of this particular pond, which is basically a closed system, limited watershed, limited dilution already, that there's going to be an impact, water quality impact, which is a physical impact upon the pond itself, leading to all kinds of degradation, algal blooms, and that will have a cascade effect on the aquatic ecosystem and the habitat, and of course the organisms that use it. Now, the next thing that was discussed in my report had to do with the vernal pool habitat that's embedded in the pond. Excuse me for a moment. Now, Eric did go out. They looked at the fact that there were some spotted salamanders there. They counted in April of 2021, I believe, 24 egg masses. So, okay, 24 egg masses is not a small number because 25 would be considered one of the criteria for a tier 1 vernal pool habitat, which is worthy of conservation. If you use the Calhoun and Clemens model, and I'll discuss it in a moment. But here's the thing. Looking at egg masses 1 year, in my view, is not enough. The Army Corps of Engineers recommends 3 because we see that, populations are in flux all the time. There are climatic conditions, other conditions that might bring more breeding adults to the pool 1 year and not another. So that number is so close that I would think that this is one of the criteria for a tier 1 vernal pool habitat. And that's why I was looking for additional information. I want to know where these egg masses were. I think we heard a little bit about that the last time. And then the thing that I heard was that, there's a quote there that says that because of the presence of bullfrogs in particular, and also by green frogs, that the recruitment of larval salamanders will be quite limited. It would be low. And my response to that in my report, as you might recall, is that I don't think the 24 egg masses points to low recruitment, because in my experience, having looking at vernal pools since the 1990s, when people didn't even know what these things were that we were looking at, the 20, 30 egg masses in a pool is, in a natural and an undisturbed environment, is a good indicator of a productive pool. The second thing that I said, and was a little tongue in cheek here, obviously, is that the predatory prowess of green frogs and bullfrogs has been overstated, exaggerated, and that it's a little bit like an urban legend. So I did a little bit of literature research. I didn't spend too much time, but it's quite obvious that spotted salamanders have behavioral mechanisms that they can employ in order to avoid predation by large ranids like bullfrogs. And I found, quotes that I put in my report that basically say that Some researchers found that spotted salamander suffered no mortality with the presence of bullfrogs. Now, that doesn't mean that there's no effect. It just means that the larvae can survive. They probably are going to be a little bit battered, as Eric did show one picture with a somewhat chewed up tail. And they probably will grow a little less vigorously during their time in the pool. But the fact that you have 25 egg masses means that enough get out and enough get back on a given year. Now, another thing that's a little bit of an issue here, if not a big issue, and we can talk about this, whether this vernal pool is a habitat is a tier 1 or tier 2, is that the terrestrial habitat that supports the life cycle of the spotted salamanders that's immediately adjacent to the breeding habitat is going to be basically converted by the proposed septic system. And I think I heard somewhere, and I don't know if I heard it the last time around or from other discussions, that these salamanders are probably not coming from there, but they're coming from other places, across the road, further away. Well, we don't really know that, do we? And the only way that we would know that is if we did some DriftNet studies and employed a good protocol to figure out exactly where these are coming. That would be difficult to do, obviously, and you would need a scientific collection permit from deep, and none of us like to do that anymore because that's what we need to do for large-scale studies, at least. But here's the clincher. When the neonates come out, so the young of the year, the larvae, they leave the aquatic environment, they come into the terrestrial environment, they're going to hang out to the closest suitable habitat where they can grow sizable enough so they can move further away. And that habitat is immediately next to the pond. So the vernal pool envelope, as we call it, which is within 100 feet of the breeding area, the breeding pool, is extremely important. If that's taken out, we basically might as well kiss that salamander, because the neonates come out and they don't have the proper habitat. They can't feed, they can't hide, and they're not going to expend energy in the first or second year to move further away. They're going to spend it right there in the immediate next environment. So
you can kiss it. You froze. Something, kiss it, probably goodbye.
Wait a minute, I'm still here.
Okay, no, George, I was saying that you said that something that you would kiss it goodbye. That's a,
Yeah, I would kiss the population bye-bye basically in a few years. Okay. Right, because you don't have recruitment from the neonates, the larvae that are coming out. They need to grow to a certain size before they move further away, and they will travel, obviously. And the other thing I've heard, and this is anecdotal, and I will have the neighbors talk about it, is that they've never seen any, if these salamanders are coming from across the street, if you will, they have never seen any run over salamanders. Well, yeah, that might be an indicator if you don't see any, but sometimes these salamanders move during a time of the night where there's not a lot of activity. So they might be able to get through. But again, the issue in my view is that this vernal pool envelope, the immediate environment, the good habitat is being taken away. Now, a few more points, and then I'll probably rest. So going back to the septic system issues, and I'm sure you folks have heard this, and I've had that experience at least very, very close to where I live, where there's some nice ponds or lakes, actually. These are the Bolton Lakes. Upper is not an issue. The middle and lower Bolton Lakes. And there's a lakeside community all around it. It was on septic systems. And they saw a precipitous deterioration of water quality. So they got a grant. And what happened by the municipalities, by Bolton, is they put a sewer system around it. So they hooked it to municipal system. And what you will find out is that many lakes in the Northeast that have had issues because of either failing septic systems or because of just the density of the septic systems, even if they were not failing around a particular water body, that the solution was always to reduce the nitrogen load by getting rid of septic systems and going onto a municipal sewer, which then would take it away and treat it somewhere else. You also look at studies that have been done in Cape Cod. Now you say, George, why are we talking about Cape Cod? This is Madison. Well, here's the issue. There are a lot of little ponds like this one on sandy soils all over Cape Cod, because Cape Cod is basically one big sandbar. And what they have found out again and again, and the EPA has studied it, and the municipalities have studied it, the government and Massachusetts have studied it, found out that the number one reason for deterioration of small freshwater, groundwater-fed ponds was septic systems. Nitrates, nitrogen load from septic systems. So that's not something that's new. It's been around for a long time. So I guess you have my report. I don't know if there's a way for me to share a screen and just show you a couple of things, and then I'll just rest. Let me try this. Oh, okay. Let's see. Where do I want to go? Oh boy. Here we go. Can you see this?
Yep.
So this is the little exercise that I did using the tools on that USDA and RCS web soil survey. This is, they give you ratings for septic tank absorption fields. Here's our site, there's the pond, and you can see the red. And if you go down here, it says very limited. So we already know we have issues in these kinds of soils. The other thing you can see is that here's another little map. And this is the saturated hydraulic conductivity. Now I know they did some percolation tests. And in coarse soils, percolation tests do give us some information, but in situ permeability hydraulic conductivity tests are always much better and much more accurate. And I didn't get into the weeds to figure out if what they did was adequate or not, but the idea is that the saturated hydraulic conductivity is very high for these soils in here again. And what does that mean is that they're fast. And what does that mean? Well, it means that, let's see, Hinkley loamy sand, micrometers per second. I think I did that calculation, and it's 14 inches per hour. There you go. These are fast. And again, let's see. This is what I was telling you before. These two divergent lines that I still like an answer for that. I'd like to know who did that delineation, if there's a report, and why that was used for before or not used now. Oh, yeah, so here's something that the applicant is probably going to talk about. And this is your vernal pool assessment sheet from the Calhoun and Clemens methodology. And it gives you some idea of how to figure out if something is a tier 1 or not. And so there's an A and a B. Biological value of vernal pool. Are there 25 or more egg masses regardless of species? I would say yes, because we're so close, and I would expect that there might be more if there were a 3-year running study. And then under B, at least 75% of the vernal pool envelope 100 feet from the pool is undeveloped. I would say actively, in essence, it is the case. because this is a kind of a unique situation. You don't have a classic vernal pool, so you have to look at it specifically. And at least 50% of the critical terrestrial habitat undeveloped, and I would still say yes. If that's all yes, then we have a tier 1. But even if we had tier 2, here's what they say about tier 2. It's the tier 2 pools will probably constitute the majority of vernal pool resources. That's correct. Management recommendations should be applied to these sites to the maximum extent practicable. And tier 2 pools might also be likely candidates for restoration efforts, i.e. reforestation of critical terrestrial habitat. Now, all of us use this methodology, and it's a good tool, and I'm not going to knock it, but you have to look at specific conditions for each particular vernal pool habitat. And in my professional opinion, the issue here is really, as far as the vernal pool habitat is concerned, it's its degradation by degradation of water quality of the habitat itself, algal blooms, etc. And then this comes into play secondarily when you consider the fact that the vernal pool envelope is basically going to be eliminated. So that's kind of where I'm at with that. And I think I'm pretty much, this is the, this was in the report. And I think what you can see here is the limited watershed of this particular pond. Here's the limit of the watershed. Here's a high point. There's a little saddle down to here, to there, and then probably up this way. So this is the watershed. This is where the septic system is going to go. So it's obvious that the groundwater is going to want to head this way. And similarly, the septic system for the other development is somewhere in here, and it's basically heading this way. So this pond is in the crosshairs as far as septic system effluent. Now, the other thing too that you might want to see, I know that one of the things that I think Eric said is that this particular habitat here is full of invasive species. Tree of Heaven was one, I think, and other things. That doesn't make it any less viable as a vernal pool envelope for the larval salamanders that are coming out. Leaf litter is leaf litter. Friable soil is friable soil. That's what they need. So they will be protected. But now, and also the other thing you see this hanging trees. These are red maples. You can see from the buds. And so there's some larger trees in this area, not just invasive species. I think that's all I have, so I'll stop sharing. And thank you so much for being patient with my technical problems. I have no idea why we lost power.
George, I do have a few questions for you that maybe you could expound upon for the commission.
Certainly.
You said that the area where the leaching fields are planned to be placed, it's fast-moving soils. And how much of the nitrates are removed when they filter through the leaching fields?
Like I said, only about 40 to 45% of nitrogen in general, including nitrate, is taken out by the leaching fields. And the rest of it is basically heading away. And the only thing that would reduce the concentrations is dilution. And that's why I asked for a dilution model to be had so we can see, what are we looking at? Are we looking at 6 milligrams per liter going to the pond? Or are we looking at 2 milligrams per liter going to the pond? And then we could make an assessment. And I will also think that it's a cumulative impact. So I would have him look at the other septic system also. And
George, also we discussed the movement of the water from the pond, because it has to move somewhere. Mr. Davidson, I believe, stated that it was moving to the southwest. What is your opinion?
well, if you look at the topography and you look at the northeastern corner of the pond, which you notice that there's a lower area. And then there's a slight rise, and then it comes down into a ditch that's in lower elevation than the rest of the site. And then it's heading in a northeasterly direction towards the salt marsh, or at least the tidal marsh. That's another several hundred feet further down. So if I'm reading the topography, and given the fact that these are soils that are probably pretty homogeneous as far as the substrata, looking at topography, I think the water comes into the pond, subsurface, obviously groundwater fed, and then eventually it moves off in a northeasterly direction. Again, subsurfacely, not overland, unless you have a 500-year storm.
Now, the applicant also has stated that they are going to be removing all the trees in the woodland area for the leaching fields. Now, what does the root system of the trees do to help in processing nitrates?
Well, as I said before, it's one of the only things that we got left, apart from dilution, that's going to take up the nitrates and either transform them or uptake them and immobilize them, and that is deep root systems. So like nitrates are ready fertilizer, you have vegetation there, it's going to readily take it. But it's the deep roots, the deep system of trees that are much more effective, because that's where the groundwater is going. It's deeper. So I know they're planting some things around the edges, but those are not deep rooted systems, so they wouldn't really affect nitrogen attenuation.
Now, George, also the applicant has, instead of flushing stormwater half into the pond and then half into the street, now they are taking all the stormwater from the parking lot and the roof and directing it into the pond. So, can you remove all of the chemicals?
No, I think here's the thing. What they're doing is and I don't knock them for doing this. They're on the right trajectory. They just haven't, in my mind, designed it in properly to take care of some specific situations that I explained before. So they're taking the roof, and the roof is relatively clean. Everyone knows that, but it is a volume, right? And then they're taking, with their diversion control system, they're taking the water quality volume and bringing it towards the pond, and they're going to try to renovate it. And then for any storm that generates more than the water quality volume, that's going to go into their below ground system, and then eventually it's going to head out to the street system, which it connects. I don't have a problem with that. That's, I understand why they're doing that. The issue is that, in my view, from a water quality perspective, they have not properly designed this to take out the constituents. And as you probably know, we didn't do a pollutant loading analysis, but if you did one, you would see that even the best above ground, properly designed and sized systems will only take something in the order of 50 to 55% of nitrogen out, maybe 60 to 65 of soluble nitrogen, of soluble phosphorus out. So there's always stuff that's going to go and leave even the best designed system to go to the pond. But obviously what we're trying to do is to remove as much as possible so we don't have an impact on the receiving water. More often, unfortunately, the receiving water is a wetland or a water course that has large capacity. This one doesn't. Again, it's a closed system. So it's going to be greatly affected by everything that's being, not only the stormwater, but again, the septic system.
And so basically you're saying that a lot of the chemicals from the parking lot will eventually end up in the pond.
Yeah, if the thing is not properly designed and functioning, yes, absolutely.
Because Mr. Ott, in his presentation or explanation of the separator, saying that it would remove the solids, but
yeah,
chemicals are in liquid form.
Right. So that's a lot of these hydrodynamic separators do fairly well for the coarser stuff, even the medium stuff. But they let the very fine stuff, silt and very fine sand go through, and anything that's soluble or colloidal for that matter. And we know that sometimes, even though we say 80% TSS removal is the golden standard, the issue is that in the 20% that's going by is very often 80% of the pollution. That's an issue, especially because of the soluble forms of even heavy metals. There's a lot of heavy metals that are produced in parking lots that have two forms. One is a particulate form, and that can be removed and absorbed and removed by practices, and the other one is a soluble form. And that goes through, and the only way that these soluble forms are able to be attenuated is if you have properly designed and sized systems to do the best you can possibly can. And even then, some will still escape. But what we're trying to do is to reduce the concentrations to the point where when these concentrations get into this pond, they're not going to have an adverse impact. But if the system is not properly designed or sized, then obviously we will have an impact.
Now, currently there is one residence on the property, and it has a septic system. And that septic system, to your knowledge, does it look like it's faring well?
I have not really looked at the septic system that's there, how old it is, how new it is. And it's only serving one house, right?
So in the degradation of the pond from one septic system is not as bad and also relevant, going to 18 units.
Well, that's an existing condition. So that's what we're comparing it to. Here's the existing condition. What is the quality of the pond? What kind of nutrient levels do we have in there? What else is going on? That's why I was asking. And typically I don't ask for water quality sampling. I'd assume that it's good or not. But in this particular case, I would really want to know, because that gives me an idea of what concentrations, if I knew what the concentrations were there, be able to make an assessment of what the change would be. If this was, and the other thing that I looked at, very often you look at the aerial photographs in Google Earth. I'm doing a project right now, and I have an offsite pond that I'm looking at and going, well, I can't go trapsing the other person's land without permission, but I want to know what's going on in their pond. And I look at the aerial photographs, and in most years, from June through September, which is the aerial photographs, it looks like green soup, like pea soup. So it's covered with duckweed and other vegetation. So I know that's a high nutrient system. But when you look at the same photographs for this one, you don't see that. And I think it's because this pond is not highly eutrophied. It's not degraded. It has volume, it has depth, and so far it has fared well.
All right, George, thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. Well, thank you for your presentation. Did you have more to say?
A few minor points. The last couple of hearings, we sat through prior applications. One of them was for the removal of dead trees. I think it was Jeremiah Long, if I remember the name of the applicant. You basically, I'm not criticizing the application, but the agency, but you put him through the ringer personally. But in this particular case, here we have an applicant coming in, basically going to be raping the whole north land of this particular property in order to put it in a septic system. I find that ironic that, I hope that you basically hold his feet to the fire, the applicant's feet to the fire, regarding the destruction of trees as you did to the prior applicant, Mr. Long. But, you know, the other concern is that my clients are concerned about that there was no migratory bird study that was conducted after they presented application of photographs showing the various fowl that live in the area, and the applicant did not provide that, and basically said that, you know, there wasn't any type of habitat or animals in the area that really raised the concern that there should be any studies of what would happen if if this full application or this apartment complex was put up. So my client would also like to see a study done if the applicant's going to remove all those trees, the number of the trees they're going to remove, the types, and the size of those trees. They're saying that they're just not the original trees there. That's really immaterial. They've been there for 30, 40 years now. And if you're putting other applicants' feet to the fire regarding removal of trees, I think this applicant deserves the same treatment. Also, the excavation on the front parking lot, even though they said that they removed the removal of stormwater from the parking lot and not onto the street, but into the pond, and they no longer have to cut through the root systems of the large beach that's on town property. The root system does end up, probably beyond the canopy that it currently exists, and so there's no explanation of what the grading of the basically construction and grading of the parking lot will do to the root system there. I'm going over my notes so I can see if I didn't miss anything. Oh, the other thing is the applicant, my understanding inland wetlands, it's the separation between the septic system and a well, it has to be minimum 75 feet. The chairwoman, is that correct?
Probably. I'll have
Yes,
to look. Yes,
yes.
Public health code.
Yeah.
Mill and talked to the owner. The owner is concerned and also filed a letter of opposition. He basically, they found the well cap, and the well is pretty close to the property line. And so if this is not within 75 feet, that's going to create a problem. So that's something the applicant did not research, did not put on his site plan. And that is a concern to my clients and also to the budding neighbor.
okay. You cut out for a second. So where's the well cap?
Well cap is approximately between 40 and 50 feet from the property line.
From your client's property line? Or,
From the neighbor, the north of budding neighbor 42.
okay,
And like I said, the leaching fields, it's going to be right up there in the northern boundary. So the applicant should find out how close that well cap is to the leaching fields.
do you have any other comments?
No further comments right now. Once again, just because we made our presentation here today doesn't mean that when the applicant comes in and makes further explanations that we will have other questions.
I have no doubt. But what I would actually like to do now is allow our very patient public to have some comments. This is our second hearing. We only had a couple people from the public last time speak. So I would like to open it up to our attendees. You can raise your hand and we can get you in. I would ask that we keep the comments to wetlands because we are not planning and zoning. So really our jurisdiction is over wetland concerns. All right, so Mr. Clyde.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
You should turn off. Thank you. I want to begin by thanking the agency. This is only the second of these meetings I've attended, but I can tell that this is time consuming and late night work, and I don't know what you all get paid for this, but it's important, and thank you for your work. Also, my comments were put together, and I actually submitted a written copy, which is in the file, but after the last meeting, and so it's taking into consideration what I heard there. And I do appreciate the work and research that the applicants put together in their proposal, and I know clearly they put a lot of thinking into it. I appreciated the biological analysis that the environmentalists put together. My interest is more in the chemical analysis, and George Logan talked about some of the things that I was concerned about, and I wrote in my letter. It seems clear that the applicants and I think it was the engineer last time talked about efforts to put the septic system and leaching fields in the best possible place, but it wasn't clear that while it's the best possible place, that it is still good enough. And it seems to me that, and I think that what I heard from George Logan this evening added to my concerns, that while it may be best possible on the site, it may not be good enough. And it seems like it's not good enough. Another thing I put in my letter, I won't go into a lot of detail, but Attorney Shansky this isn't my field. As I said, this is my second meeting with you all. So knowing what you all do, so I looked into it a little bit, because the implication was that you had limited scope in terms of decision making on these cases, but from what I saw in the wetland regulations for Madison, that it's the purpose of the regulations to, and I'm just summarizing, protect, preserve, and maintain the use of wetlands, and minimize the disturbance and pollution, and the responsibility of the agency is to implement the purposes and provisions of these regulations. So that doesn't sound to me very limited. I mean, I'm not wanting to tell you what your job is, but I'm just, I'm understanding, and I wrote the letter that I did, and I'm making these comments, assuming, based on what I read, that the purpose of the regulations is to protect and preserve the inland wetlands, including from pollution, and the agency is charged with implementing that purpose. So, and one last piece that I just saw when I was reading the regulations is that the regulations do include, and I know you know this, a requirement of a biological evaluation of the wetlands. And I just mentioned that because I had thought that Attorney Shansky had said that the consideration of the animals wasn't a thing, wasn't within your purview or something. But the fact that there was a biological evaluation is part of the report, and the regulations made me think that the animals were part. As far as the chemical, the chemistry that I was concerned about, nitrogen is the biggest one, and that was already talked about a great deal. And in a nutshell, it's whether that goes from clear water to green sludge, which we've seen other places because of the algal blooms. But there are a lot of other chemicals that are being studied that come through these septic systems that the regulations, I know you're subject to the regulations, but you also are to preserve the purpose, which is prevent pollution. And there are lots of other chemicals that are of concern and being studied right now. There are synthetic and natural estrogen conjugates, antibiotics, PFAs, quaternary ammonium compounds, steroids, hormones, pharmaceuticals, surfactants, and other things related to personal home care products, all of which degrade at different levels as they go through the soil system. So we talked about the nitrogen, talked about its capacity to degrade, but all of these things are increasingly being studied right now for the impact first of all, for their likelihood of getting through systems, which is in many cases high. And secondly, for the impact they have on people and on animals. And so that's a serious concern to me. And then some, I think it was George Logan talked about, somebody talked about that the research indicates that if you're going to do high concentrated systems, and yeah, he did talk about that, that it really is a septic, a sewer system that is going to be handling that kind of volume, not a septic system. And I was interested, I didn't know that it's that that in Cape Cod or wherever he was talking about, that they've started putting those in where they had found that they had degraded water resources by trying to get by with sewer systems. But and I know Madison, I read reports that Madison has no public sewers right now, but as of a 2018 report is looking into that, and partly because of the pressure. Well, I don't know when the pressure came for the additional housing, but so I know Madison is looking into that and is trying to avoid that. I don't know what extent this agency has impact or is related to that study, but however that turns out, it just seems like the state mandate, that the this increased density that's being proposed on this site can't be supported by a sewer system, and by a septic system, and it needs a sewer system to support that kind of volume, or else you're going to have the nitrogen and all those other things come into the water. Just a last thing to say, in the biology, so I'm concerned about the chemistry, but really because of its impact on biology. And I know we've been talking about frogs and salamanders, but living in the area, I can just tell you, it's amazing the variety of wildlife that we see, and all that wildlife needs fresh water, and there are limited, I mean, I don't know exactly where are the big sources, but that's an important one. As you go around the neighborhood, that pond, there's another one further up the road, which I understand the owner spoke last time, said that they had been declined the capacity to do some kind of construction there. But we just see, there are 17 turkeys that we see periodically as they make their rounds in our backyard. We see foxes and hawks and coyotes and raccoons and herons and deer, and about a month ago I saw a bobcat. We see lots and lots of animals, and that diversity seems like those animals depend on fresh water, and this seems like it's an important source. And if that water is degraded, first of all, just by turning all thick green, but second, by having chemicals in it that harm those animals over time, that seems like a huge loss. So I wrote a little more in my written version of the comments, but at this point I've spoken for a long time, so I'll stop talking. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your contribution and for participating in our public hearing. Okay, so we have another hand. DK.
Hi, yes, my name is Deb King and my property's at 49 Cottage Road. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, good. Thank you, Chairwoman Friedenberg and members of the commission. I appreciate the time you're taking. It's a lot of time, and I think you're all volunteers. So Eric Davison stated at the last public hearing on December 6th that this property is good for development because it's degraded and close to utility lines. Well, this might be good for the developer, but it certainly is not good for the pond, the beech tree, the neighborhood, or the wetlands habitat. At the October 4th meeting, John DeLaura stated that there was no need for a site walk because if the commission visited the site, all they would see is 2 buildings, pavement, and a pond. Well, that's pretty close, but the driveway is actually gravel. It's not pavement. And it absorbs a great deal of water, as does the root system of the beech tree. I realize the applicant has stated they no longer plan to excavate through the root system of the tree, but we haven't seen the revised plans. And I have a few questions about the pavement and excavation near the beech tree. I spoke with the president of a large site contracting firm, and he told me that if you want to save a tree when you're developing a site, that the rule is you don't excavate through the drip line of the tree. And the drip line means the canopy. So the canopy of this tree is rather large. So I'd like to know what the circumference of the canopy is, and then how close to that circumference will the 27 paved parking spaces be, and how close will the excavation be? I think the commission already knows there's currently significant pooling of water on Cottage Road near the corner of Mill and Cottage. The road's very narrow at this location, about 15 or 16 feet across. For site calculations, the applicant's using NOAA numbers for a 25-year rainfall, which is 6.45 inches in 24 hours. Already on July 10th of 2021, we had a 4.56 inch in 24-hour rainfall, which exceeded the 5-year mark. And then on September 2nd, we had a 5.55 inch rainfall, which is greater than the 10-year mark. So, and it's only less than an inch short of the 25-year benchmark, which is being used for this project. So given that the rainfall has come so close to the 25-year mark already, would the applicant be willing to run the calculations based on, say, the 50-year mark, which is 7.31? The applicant plans to install what looks like a massive stormwater detention system. Looks like it's about 24 by 60 feet under the planned paved parking lot. The system, according to the manufacturer's records, only has a warranty of 5 years. So my question is, what happens if it fails or needs maintenance? Sounds like it might be complicated since it's underneath the pavement. Because this property is within 500 feet of a tidal wetland, DEEP requires that the runoff volume generated from 1 inch of rainfall be retained on site. Otherwise, there will be the option of draining stormwater to the existing catch basin on Mill Road instead of sending partially treated water directly to the pond. I'd like to say that I think this is a reason why the site is so unsuitable for this development. Because the retention system will not capture 20% of the contaminated stormwater or solubles such as acids, salts, and toxic metals. The previous owner has stated that the site has flooded significantly in the past, and I'd like to just know which direction the excess water will flow if the pond gets too high for its current boundaries. I think George Logan indicated it'll be to the northeast, but it would be good if somebody could confirm that. That brings us to the spotted salamanders. The applicant's attorney stated that the neighbors are providing speculative information, but I'm putting forth here that the applicant is speculating with regard to the spotted salamander. They've performed no studies regarding the habitat. They said they think the salamander are crossing the road with no evidence to support that. And I'd suggest that it's to the north, as stated before. I mean, if you were a spotted salamander living in the pond, would you crawl across a great deal of grass, over a curb, over the pavement, or would you just go into the suitable territory right north of the pond? In any case, I think an independent study should be performed. And as I think Bill said, we ride our bikes and walk past this area all the time, and we've never seen any dead salamanders in the area. Also, the trees, there's a lot of red maples. I'd like to see the commission ask what kind of trees and how many are going to be taken down, because I think the applicant is only planting mostly very small trees, like 2 feet. A lot of them are 2 feet or less. Another question I have is, was the state of Connecticut Department of Health notified that there's a well at 42 Mill Road very close to the proposed leach fields when the application was submitted? If not, I think they need to know that. And, you know, I'd be very concerned if I were that property owner that my well was going to be contaminated. So in summary, I think that this site is uniquely unsuitable for the proposed development. The Wetlands Commission mission is to protect and preserve the wetlands and regulate activity that may be detrimental to it. So I'm hoping you'll consider that when you decide on this application. Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, we have Tom Sullivan.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you for allowing me the opportunity to speak. My name is Tom Sullivan, and I own a home at 49 Cottage Road, which is part of the Seabreeze Condominium Association. I would point out that my home is one of 2 full-time residents at 49 Cottage. Oh, by the way, I have submitted written comments previously, Madam Chair and members of the commission. I would point you to my December 4th email. I intend to highlight some of the points there, but I won't bore you with all those details because you've been very patient with your time. But back to my proximity and my interest in the application. I own a full-time residence at Seabreeze. It's one of 2 full-time residents. My home is the closest to 41 Cottage Road, and I directly abut 41 Cottage Road. The pond in question is directly out my back window. I would champion the comments just ahead of 2 comments before mine, Mr. Clyde. Before I get started here, Applicant's counsel was pretty quick to point out the limitations of your authority at the last meeting. I would offer that I've read your statute and I'm a former public official. I've read your governing statutes, and you have all the authority in the world to reject this application for its deficiencies. And because of the adverse impact to the wetlands, that is all well within your authority. If you don't protect the ecology, the environment in our neighborhood, then who will? Between their filing appearance and the last public hearing, the applicants and their surrogates have given upwards of 3 hours of airtime. I know you've been very patient again tonight with the public, and I would just hope, I believe there's a pretty good outpouring of public interest in this. We've seen a lot of written comments. There's an acknowledged intervener who I hope will be heard. You know, the applicants have already said they have no intentions of speaking tonight and only listening. While listening is a virtue, and I hope they do listen. I would hope the interveners and others get a chance to rebut their claims, and that the applicants are not given this unlimited rule to be able to come back and readjust all the deficiencies in their applications. At some point, we got to call a timeout here and say, this is just not a worthy project. Within a few hundred yards, all on Cottage Road, I would point out, we're talking about this as being one of 3 large multifamily developments. 2 of the 3, number 41 Cottage Road and this one, will be abutting and sharing the same pond. And I guess my question to the commission, to the agency is, when is enough enough? Do we really think the neighborhood can sustain septic systems to the small density of this one neighborhood, it goes beyond the pale of reason to think that that is something that, you know, is tolerable. In my written comments, I mentioned the applicant's abysmal treatment of the neighborhood in the prior project at 41 Cottage Road. Directly behind my home, he decimated the tree canopy consisting of oaks and maples and the understory. I know the members of the commission said they didn't need to go out to look at the site, but I would ask you to walk the property directly behind my home and you will see all the large trees that were taken out with the project at 41 Cottage Road. And as a result, we are left with nothing but shrubbery and a field layer. This has forever altered and adversely impacted our property. I was struck by the excruciating detail that the applicant's landscaper went into at the last hearing and how they intend to plant giant arborvitaes in between number 41 and number 35 Cottage Road, both of his projects. Why is he taking such care to ensure privacy and the beauty between his own properties when he's ruined ours? Why couldn't he plant giant arborvitaes between 41 Cottage Road and my home? Why did he decimate the canopy behind my home? Why does he only care about the neighbor when the neighbor is himself? Does not the neighborhood matter? At the last hearing, we heard from our good neighbor, Don Moore. Mr. Moore described his property and the pond on his property. He pointed out that he has been prohibited by the same commission and authority from developing within 100 feet of his pond. Why would we restrict Mr. Moore, but not this applicant? Why is there such an inconsistency? I would also point out that Mr. Moore offered an alternative site to the applicants for their project. The bottom line here is we need an independent, we've heard from Mr. Logan, who did a fabulous job outlining all the deficiencies in the application. There are obviously some serious concerns that he brought to the fore around, where the citations are and some of the erroneous measurements in the application. I would call upon the town to hire an independent expert to validate some of the inconsistencies that we've noted. And that obviously needs to be done and borne at the cost of the applicant. Again, Madam Chair, members of the commission, I do appreciate your time and attention. I would point you, again, I'm saving you the of going into too much detail, but I've got some other finer points in my written comments that I submitted for the record under my email of December 4th. But I appreciate your time this evening and thank you.
Thank you very much for your comments, Mr. Sullivan. All right, we have Keith Ainsworth up next.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
All right, my name is Keith Ainsworth. I reside at 31 Green Springs Drive in Madison. I've been listening to the testimony this evening as well as looked at the application materials. And I see the pond on the property and it appears to be an isolated pond and there's been nothing that I see that was raised specifically that proves that unreasonable impact is reasonably likely. In other words, they mentioned salt, they mentioned pollutants, they mentioned nitrogen, but there's no indication of what kind of concentrations you might see or what kind of loading you might see. If you're trying to prove that there's the likelihood of unreasonable harm, you need to have specific information about the kinds of loads you would expect to see, the kinds of impacts. Otherwise, the commission is left with simply saying, well, I think there might be a concern here, but I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's large or small, and I don't know if it's real. And I I was struck by the lack of specificity. There was some testimony by Mr. Logan where he said, if we did a loading study, but we didn't do one, but we would find this thing. We would find this conclusion. It's like, I don't know how he comes to that conclusion. And then you would hear things like, if we did, if the septic system is not properly designed or sized, it would have an impact. Well, unless there's proof that the septic system is not properly sized or designed or located, then that's not really a concern. So I'm not sure I heard a lot of specifics. So that was my observation from the sideline. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, we have Eileen O.
Good evening, Eileen O'Neill from 49 Cottage Road. And I also would like to thank you for all your time and volunteer towards this project and the hearing. I live at the northeast corner, I guess, is the northwest corner of 49 Cottage Road that intersects with 41 and 35 Cottage Road. And I would like to, we've talked about the property, walking the property, but I'd like to invite you to walk the property as I have, because there is a stream bed that runs all along the property of 49 Cottage Road, and it feeds right into the Hammonasset River. And you can see that also on River Road where it intersects also. So if you were to put on your galoshes or your wellies and walk that stream bed, you will see the water that is feeding towards that pond. And I propose that pond does have a connection right into the Hammonasset River. So that is a concern should there be a major climate catastrophe. And then again, with the soil maps that we have just seen from Mr. Logan. I also would just like to note that last year in November, there was a project for 5 buildings proposed for this same site from the same developer, and it was defeated in planning and zoning, and that to have it come back this year with 18 buildings proposed, or 18 apartments proposed, with possibly 36 residents. It just does not, it is not a project that the neighborhood is welcoming. And it is a very large project for a very small piece of property. I also would like to support Mr. Moore's point that he made, that he was turned down for developing near his pond. So why is there being a distinction made for this project? And also I would like to also propose or state that I believe that the owner of 35 Cottage Road and 41 Cottage Road are in partnership along with the owner of 42 Mill Road. So the larger vision for this is to develop that entire corner. And who knows next, going towards the Lewis farm. So that would just change the whole nature of the neighborhood. And again, stressing that this is a watershed area and that we have a major climate catastrophe, that this area will be affected. And I'd also like to state that I'd love to see the Madison Coastal Resilience Commission. I'd like to see their opinion on this project as well. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Let's see, Barbara Moore.
Hi, good evening. Before I start, I just want to be clear that Keith Ainsworth, who questioned the harm cited by George Logan and others, has worked as an attorney alongside Attorney Shansky in New Haven. I may have missed it, but he didn't identify himself at the time. And I don't think he's a resident of the area either. So I'm Barbara Moore, and our property abuts the intersection of Mill and River Road and is a stone's throw from the proposed project. It's very visible from here. We see all the wildlife that goes from here, our property to that property to the ocean and back and forth. So first of all, the inland wetlands are a fragile resource that really needs defending. You're defending the defenseless. They cannot defend themselves. So you are representing them. The inland wetlands are a fragile resource whose welfare impacts the migratory bird population, as well as other wildlife dependent on its health. And we see this as residents living close to the 35 Cottage Road wetland, where River Road becomes Mill Road. Many of the same migratory birds we see visiting our pond also visit 35 Cottage Road wetland. From last Zoom meeting, 35 Cottage wetland was tested by a consultant for wildlife by stepping as far as he could into the pond, which wasn't very far because in his words, it got very deep, very fast. He looked at the pond and concluded because he didn't see any wildlife at the moment, there must not be any wildlife. There should be a way to determine the pond depth other than stepping into the water. He should be able to measure the pond depth from a boat to determine how deep the pond is at its deepest point, not as far as he can stick his toes in. Also, since the owner of 35 Cottage Road isn't there full time, he can't speak to the visibility or diversity of wildlife, including migratory birds, using the pond. We thought there was no life in our 20-year-old man-made pond. It is a man-made pond, only 20 years old. We saw a 1-foot-long fish leap out of the pond. It was just amazing. So by all means, his pond has become a natural pond. It is a wetland and needs protecting. By the way, we can't build anything within 100 feet of our pond. Not that we want to, because it would harm the fish, turtles, and birds, and so forth. So it'd be inconsistent, to say the least, to apply different environmental standards for an essentially identical pond right nearby. I believe his is 30+ years old, and he has no verification that it's man-made. It's just hearsay. So as far as we've known, it's been a natural pond forever. One of our neighbors could just barely secure approval to pave a small driveway for one home near a wetland. So to allow stockpiling of new buildings on top of wetlands which would definitely require the use of heavy equipment, is insane. It was brought up last Zoom meeting that the 35 Cottage Road wetland is self-contained somehow because it was constructed 30+ years ago. However, there's no record of its construction, and we can tell you because we see it, that it currently functions as a natural pond. Now imagine you left a clean glass of water outside your house. The glass of water is self-contained. However, if you were to check that glass of clean water 1 year later, it would be teeming with both vegetative and animal life. To assume that after 30+ years, no wildlife exists in or around or uses the 35 Cottage Road wetland shows a gross misunderstanding of what a wetland is and the benefits it provides, as well as a migratory population dependent upon the health of the wetlands. As one concerned resident put it, this project is like stuffing the equivalent of 18 pounds of food into a paper bag that only can hold 1 pound. And that bag abuts a pond and is right near marsh, practically next door, and the migratory path between the Hammonasset River and the beach. Building this complex by a wetlands along a scenic road sets a bad precedent, and in our opinion, would be an egregious misapplication of inland wetland rules and standards. It would be unfair and arbitrary. Nothing has been mentioned towards addressing the light pollution that 18 units plus the 24-hour parking lot lights would impose on the migratory birds utilizing the 35 Cottage Road wetland, as well as local migratory birds trying to navigate their way back and forth from the inland wetlands to the ocean, some of which include cardinals, geese, ducks, blue heron, owls, and seagulls, which we see in our pond as well. What about the runoff from the 27-car parking lot? Do we even know what impact the runoff would have in terms of altering the pH or its deleterious and irreversible effects on the 35 Cottage Road wetland? We don't, and it hasn't been addressed. 100 feet is not enough, but it should at least begin from where the 35 Cottage Road wetland is its largest as weather changes. A wetland is defined as a land that is wet during any time of the year. It doesn't have to be consistently wet the entire time. So where the pond swells to should be the starting point to measure 100 feet of inland wetland. We have a photo from last year that shows the pond level higher and wider than it is today. It is not shrinking, but rather fluctuates, as George Logan mentioned, throughout the year. And we see this as residents living here. The very name of the project, alluding to Cottage Road and not Mill Road, is misleading. This project would sit squarely on the corner of both roads, and the light, noise, and chemical pollution would impact Mill Road, in addition to harming the wetlands. In its application for IWA approval, as Attorney Bilczek noted, applicant states inaccurately in his application to the IWA that the project does not encompass a scenic road. Yet Mill Road is indeed a scenic road. And as Mr. Bilczek notes, there's an application pending before the town of Madison and the state of Connecticut for formal designation of what is de facto a scenic road. The application is detailed, if you have seen it. We believe it provides strong support for scenic road designation for a route that includes Mill Road. We believe that Connecticut state law provides that all residents of the state have the right to submit an application to designate a road as a scenic road if it meets the statutory definition of a scenic road, which Mill Road definitely does. And the fact that here a scenic road application is pending, over which the state has a right of review, as it is land abutting Mill Road, provides a basis to defer a decision by IWA until the state and town of Madison decide on such application. The reality is that local residents recognize Mill Road to be a scenic road. Many have written support for the scenic road application filed, and this consideration is relevant, which is why the IWA application itself asks whether the project encompasses a scenic road. Consequently, we request a decision concerning 35 Cottage Road be deferred until after a decision has been made on the scenic road application encompassing Mill Road, which involves an area of both local and state interest. I admire the Inland Wetlands Committee because you volunteer time to defend the defenseless. In this case, it is all the wildlife dependent upon the 35 Cottage Road wetlands, as well as all those interconnected wetlands in the areas such as ponds, rivers, marsh, and ocean, which this property is very close to. If you set a new precedent of building on an inland wetland area, brand new building, brand new parking lot, brand new 18 units where only one unit is allowed, how could you, in good conscience, vote on any inland wetland in the future? Thank you so much for listening.
Thank you for your comments and your passion about your neighborhood. It looks like we have one more member of the public, George Ledwith.
Hello?
Yes,
Can you hear me or see me or
we can hear you.
don't want to deal with me or?
No, we're looking forward to your comments.
Yeah, thank you all, by the way, for doing what you do. I know it's not a lot of fun. I've lived in Madison for a number of years, and I just appreciate what you do. Am I going to a summary of tonight, or I started with the deck replacement and then I think the 3-car garage deal. So I think we're going back like 16 hours tonight. So I appreciate all of you, putting up with me.
Wait, I'm sorry. Are you speaking for the Cottage Road?
No, no, I'm speaking for the most recent discussion about the ponds and all of that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Right, okay, just making
Now,
sure.
can you guys see me or not? No?
No, we
No,
can't.
but we can hear you.
I'm sorry?
We can hear you.
Oh, okay. So no, I tuned in, for that deck replacement
Oh, I see.
and the
Yeah.
marshy and then the next thing, what was the next thing, whatever that was? And I just wanted to hang in because I thought, or I knew that you would be addressing this cottage street thing. And so as I said, I live up off of River Road. I live in Strathmore Farms, if you guys know where that is. It's a fairly small HOA on the Hammonasset River. I actually, I go back to that pond when it was probably half the size of what it was. And then somehow the people who own the property expanded it. And I'll tell you, I either drive by or run by that pond almost every day throughout the year. And I thought that George Leonard, I think, the environmental, the guy who presented the case.
Right, George Logan.
What was his name? Leonard?
Logan, George Logan.
Logan.
Oh, Logan, okay. I thought he presented a great case. I have seen everything from waterfowl. You also have to, if you don't know the geography, you have to understand that pond is at the intersection of Route 1 and Mill Road. And it's like, if they've been flying in and out, that's on the flyway. So if they've been flying in and out, north to south to south to north, I have seen that pond occupied by every sort of bird fowl. And it's been great. The other thing that I wanted to ask you guys about, there was back to Cottage Road. And by the way, a previous caller had said he lives on Cottage Way, and I don't know, he had some objections about what would happen with Cottage Way. I have to tell you that let me look at my notes. Yes, my note was, I think he said the same thing. We should not ignore the situation that there was what I would describe, if you don't know Cottage Way, there was a sort of business building there. I think that Bob Dowler, Bob is a big Madison developer. There was a building there that Bob Dowler, I think, had built some years ago and never ever rented it out. And so that's how that first development that I guess you guys approved was on Cottage Way. I would just wonder, you know, now we've got this sort of historic situation on Cottage Way and Mill Road. And again, I think that the whoever the scientist was or whatever, I think he made a very compelling situation. And also, as I said, also, I go by that pond, small lake, you know, 365, and I see everything. So that's my, I don't know. Did I make a case or?
We definitely appreciate hearing your comments, and it's good to hear from neighbors who are familiar with the area.
Well, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. I don't see any other hands, so I guess this is like going once, going twice. If any other members of the public at our public hearing would like to speak. Okay, taking that as a no. Attorney Shansky.
Thank you, Madam Chair. As we move to the February meeting, and because we need to request, and I indeed will send a letter requesting and consenting to an extension, it would be very important if the commission would articulate or ask any questions or requests for information so that we have time to supply it and the commission is not frustrated in an interest that goes unresponded to. So appreciating that it's been a long evening for the agency, I would be grateful if you would consider and share with us any questions or requests for information that you may have.
Well,
Oh, I have questions, Kia. This is Joe.
okay. Go ahead, Joe.
So first I was just an off comment. I was surprised. I looked at Google Maps and I saw the development next door that I know we approved a few years ago, the 2 buildings, which looks like it has a lot more impact on the pond than this does. So I was wondering where the public was for that. But here are my questions. Is the pond connected to the Hammonasset River in some way? I know the affidavit from Attorney Belcheck said it's a dug pond, but is it connected to the Hammonasset River? That's one question. How many trees are being removed for the septic system? What is the, okay, there's the site plan with the pond and it shows a cross-hatched area around the south end, I think, and it's got an arrow pointing to it in quotes, says Stormwater Wetland Limit TYP. And I just want to know, what is that area and what is a stormwater wetland limit typical, or whatever that TYP is? And those are the only questions I have for tonight.
Thank you.
Lee, Bob, John, Matthew, any questions that you have for them to think about?
I'd like to hear, I have one. I'd like to hear the applicant review the comments by George Logan and comment on what he said, which is in conflict to what our application said.
I might echo just one real question I have is that I'd like them to address by the Logan presentation is his point about the nitrates and the septic system filtering down into the pond. I guess that's one area I was always interested in because it seems like gravity is going to pull it into the pond. But if you could address that and tell your side of the story on that, that would be helpful.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Yeah, I'll have some, but Lee, do you have any?
No, not that I can articulate right now. I'm sure you guys will cover them, and hopefully the minutes will be done. And hopefully Mike and the applicant were taking good notes because there was a lot of questions from the public that I'd encourage them to answer.
I have no doubt that they were. So I have a few questions. So I will echo some of the interest in nitrogen in suburban ponds, and I am happy to point you to a paper that was done by our lab on Madison ponds and nitrogen called Holgerson et al. 2017.
Could you say the author again, please?
It's the lead author is Holgerson, Holgerson, and it's and I'm an author on that as well. So I actually know some about the nitrogen in suburban ponds. I would also, and this came up, I think this did come up in our first go around with this. And this comes back to the stormwater constructed wetland next to the pond. And I have concerns about it. I know Mike Ott has explained it, but you know, as we've heard, ponds are dynamic and there's going to be changes in rainfall, and having this constructed wetland that's going to be needed to be maintained, and that is going to be, you know, subject to heavy rainfall events. And as people have noted, we're seeing heavier rainfall events more regularly. It's the Northeast has seen from, I think I just looked it up, from 1958 to 2012, we have 71% heavier, more heavy rainfall events. And that's just documented. We're going to see heavier storm events. And so what does that mean for trying to contain all of this storm water next to a pond that is also going to fluctuate, and that some of the soils look good and some are obviously wetland soils, which means they will infiltrate differently. And so I have concerns about the efficacy of that system in the world we live in today. And I guess I have, so I did take notes from other people. So I think, you know, yes, we should know about the trees. I think the drip line from the canopy would be reasonable to figure out, because that is known for big trees like that. They breathe, they need to respire. And if it's all covered up, that will have implications. So that would be good information to have. I've obviously read through the environmental report, and there wasn't any information on macroinvertebrates. It was, it was pretty good on some level, but it was also lacking in other ways. And so I don't think we have a good idea of exactly what's in that pond. Which, I think at some level, we know there, obviously there's bullfrogs, green frogs, and spotted salamanders and turtles, maybe fish. There weren't any fish documented. They're trickier to catch sometimes, depending, if that seine didn't go all the way to the bottom, then they'll escape. And I guess the function and values, they were all put down as pretty negative in that report. And I guess, I know that high rate 13 supplement, so I think there's room for interpretation there. And then I guess,
I beg your pardon. Could you repeat what you just said? I did not hear it.
oh, sorry. In that report, there's a huge section on the function and values of wetlands, which comes from this Highway 13 supplement. This is an Army Corps thing. What Eric Davison put down was, his assessment was that the infiltration and the nutrient, retention and all of that had lower value. And there wasn't much to back that up, I guess I would say. Clearly there weren't, at least as far as I can tell, there wasn't much water chemistry done. We don't know what the temperature was in that pond at that time, because that could tell us if it's spring fed or groundwater fed versus, how much surface water is getting in. There's more information. And I guess the other thing I'll just say, and this came up in the stormwater management report. Well, actually, that's okay. It's not a question. It's a comment. So it's fine.
Well, I'd be curious about your comment.
Oh, that's okay. I'll save it. I want to focus on to see if there's any other questions. I think that covers it. And I know you were probably taking notes, so I have no doubt addressed other questions that came up with respect to the public as well as the intervener.
Great. I appreciate that very much. Thank you.
All right, so I gather we will continue the public hearing. Is that until our next meeting? So I will move that we continue this to the next meeting. I guess, do we need to vote on that? Yes, people, you have to stay with me.
I'm here.
Okay, the answer is yes. And I think Marjorie said she's gonna submit an extension.
Yes, so I don't think, so we're not closing it, so we can just continue this
Continue it.
and come back and return to our regularly scheduled program of agenda items.
All right,
Thank you,
then I'll make a
everybody.
motion.
Yeah.
I'll make a motion that we continue with this application number 21-31 pursuant to an extension confirmation from Attorney Shansky to our February meeting.
I'll second that.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
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 All right, okay.
Thank
Thank you all for your attendance, and we're gonna move ahead here.
Thank you.
So our last regular meeting agenda item is 21-38 Summerhill Road. This is a subdivision referral for a 3-lot subdivision. And have we kept is the applicant here? Did they give up?
Mike's here.
I gotta say, everything that happened after the hearing last month is a blur.
We've got minutes. That's why we have
A lot
minutes
of this, those are long.
up here. All right, so I guess Chuck Mandel, are you speaking for the applicant?
I am trying to.
I'm going to promote Chuck so he can present.
Okay.
He can be a panelist then.
Hey, good evening, Chuck Mandel. Let me just see if I can start the video just to get on an even footing. There you go. Good evening, everybody. Chuck Mandel, agent for the applicant, Arbin Nico. This is map 110, lot 30. It's just under 10 acres. It's in an RU1 zone. What we're doing, we're proposing a 3-lot subdivision with all the proposed activity outside the 100-foot review. It might be 101 feet, but it is actually 100 plus feet. The wetlands were flagged by Bob Russo. It's adjacent to the Hammonasset River. And actually, it's also adjacent to the Madison Land Conservation Trust. We have had a couple of talks with David Roach And I did submit a letter from the land trust expressing interest in the parcel, but they don't want to get involved until it's actually approved. So we don't really want to go forward with it, but they are interested in potentially acquiring the piece if we do get the approvals. Aaron, if you want to throw the map, I think sheet 2 of 3, that would be the best scenario for you to look at. That shows the.
Excuse me. Okay. You are able to screen share as well, Chuck.
Yeah, I'm home. Yeah, it's, if you could do it, I'd appreciate it.
You're looking for the site plan?
Yeah, sheet C3, yeah, the site development plan. This way the commission can see the proposed activity. It'll be all separate driveways. It's all road frontage, 4-bedroom houses. We have a letter from the Madison Health Department. We did soil testing, not for the exact area where the septic systems are, but each lot can support a fully code compliant septic system on there, and individual wells as well. Okay. So the hatched area to the bottom of the screen, that's the proposed open space area. It's probably about 3.5 acres, and that is all adjacent to the Hammonasset River. We're also going to provide a pedestrian access way. To the north, you can see there's an area where actually there's an existing pull-off now, and probably 2 to 3 cars could potentially park there if like I said, if the land trust decides to take that and they want pedestrian access in that area. We have rain gardens to mitigate the roof water, showing stockpile areas well further away from the certainly outside the 100-foot review. And there's a January 20th planning and zoning meeting. We are hoping to get a referral letter from the commission with a positive feedback. And also I noted that I'm a wetlands commissioner in my town, and looking at this plan, I noticed that one note that I would put as a condition of approval is if anything changes from this plan, it would certainly have to go back to the Wetlands Commission, because we don't know what any future owner will propose on this. So, and that's really, keep it brief, and that's it.
All right. Does anybody have questions for Mr. Mandel?
No questions. I was just going to comment when I was looking at the plan earlier today. I kind of shuddered at the topography and all the wetlands on it. But then I saw a note somewhere that it says absolutely no regulated activity within 100 feet of the wetlands will take place. So I felt a little better. But on its face, it looks like a scary one to give a favorable review to, but because no regulated activities will take place within 100 feet, I would be supportive.
Well, and this is just a subdivision referral. I think that
I know.
we want to see, lot 2 in particular, that, all the lots are right up against the 100-foot review line. So I think, we'd probably want to see if anything shifts when these are sold, or anybody shifts anything, that's going to probably get kicked right back to us.
Well, that was my comment also.
Yeah, right, exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, you have pulled everything. You've pulled everything out.
We did.
Inches to spare, it looks like.
But the biggest plus for this is the land trust potential acquisition. It gives a nice, that line is approximately 100 feet in width for the entire length. So that's an additional 100-foot buffer to the river itself.
Yeah, so
yeah, we've seen open space strips like this decimated by people. So it's good to see, but people got to know.
Oh, I know, but we've been hired by the land trust in Madison several times to do the surveying work just for that reason, to mark encroachments. But that's an enforcement issue. There's
Correct.
money and funds for that.
Yep. Okay.
Any other comments? or concerns? I mean, there's some steep topography, there's, this is half the property is wetlands, right?
Right.
Approximately.
Yep.
So the open space, is that mostly the wetland area then?
No, because we
It
needed
looks
some,
like-
we needed some for lot area. So if you see the blue line that's
Yeah.
in there, the blue flags, that's the wetland boundary. So you can see there is some wetlands. There will be wetlands on the individual lots also.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But we needed the area to make it a viable subdivision lot.
But Kia, it looks like the open space is all riparian area of the Manasset River for sure.
Right, well, that's what I was wondering. So I thought part of the open space regulation said that only so much percent can be wetland.
Right, but we can ask for a waiver for during subdivision applications, and we have had talks with town staff and the wetland and the open space commission, and they are favorable to grant that. It's really not a wetlands issue per se.
Just asking.
Oh, I know.
Yep.
All right, are there other questions, comments? Oh, good, now I can see you all again. Everyone is still awake, yay.
Yep, yep.
All
I
right,
agree with
I have
Joe.
a question. John,
Go
did you have any comments on this? So,
Me?
John DeLora?
Yeah, well, the only comment I have is that when these lots come to the building, for the development process, for the building permit, I'm going to look at those and I'll compare that what's submitted for the building permit and the site plan to what's approved on this subdivision, because it's pretty darn close to the 100-foot. You know, it's going to be miraculous if all of this development is within just 12 inches or 6 inches outside that 100-foot. So I'm going to pay close attention to that as these are submitted individually and compare those, and I'll give you some feedback on how those lots are being developed as far as what you're going to approve on this plan.
right, and yeah, and obviously, it's close enough that if any of them shift, it will come back.
It's coming back. Yep.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yep.
I think just to pick up on what John is saying also, that the sedimentation and erosion controls are shown on the site development plan. But I'm unclear if that's where the actual limits of clearing or lawn are on the proposed site development. So while some construction activities, I think you'll need some clarification as far as the extent of lawn and general clearing on the site, limits of disturbance, to determine whether or not a regulated activity permit is necessary.
Like I said, we'll be coming back with site plan approval, and John will get a chance to look at those and review them again.
All right. Well, as long as everyone's keeping a close eye.
It's in
Okay.
everyone's best interest to do it correctly. And like I
Yes,
said, and we will be coming back if there is any change.
Yes. That's great. All right, well, if there are no other questions, I think, as I recall, we can write a letter, or can't our minutes can reflect the subdivision referrals. I know we've done, it depends, sometimes they're more complicated and we actually do a motion, which we can do.
Aaron, I think Aaron, can we do that as a memo, as a staff? Can we do that for the agency as a memo?
Sure. Staff can draft a memo to the Planning and Zoning Commission. However, I think you should make a motion at this meeting with your findings and any potential, comments or recommendations that you may have.
Yeah, I move that we have John draft a memo for the agency, giving a positive referral to the planning and zoning for application, was it 2138?
Right. And can we add what we discussed
Yes.
about the limits of clearing and that the sediment and erosion controls? Can't remember. What else did we talk about?
Changes.
And changes to the
changes,
site,
any
yeah, any changes to the site plan.
And the reasons that we favor this application is because no activity is going to take place within the upland review area. And we like the open space as shown on the plans, but would probably prefer more.
Okay. All right, so that was a motion that Lee made and we added on to. So would someone like to second that expanded motion?
I'll second it.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay,
Thank you very much.
you're welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so Aaron, you had said that you had told people who are for receipt that we weren't doing that, but that maybe the land trust wanted to do something. Not sure where we're at, except that it's 10:01.
Absolutely. I will make this brief. I do believe you do have 1, 2, 3, 4, 3 receipts that are on. You did pass over 61 Lovers Lane and 544 Opening Hill Road. And I think just to have the commission determine if you're interested in having site walks on either of those properties or public hearings, as well as this Warpus Road application. Those same considerations should be taken by the agency. Additionally, I did receive a request, a verbal request from the land trust to waive the local application fees for this application, and that's something that the commission can consider at this time. As you're aware, the state fees cannot be waived by a local agency, but I believe that's given the fact that they're our town's local nonprofit land trust. They are requesting that fee to be waived.
Okay, well, so we have the Lovers Lane, we have Opening Road. We also had this Pleasant View that was added on, right?
And so, yes, so on Friday, we received 2 applications, and as you're aware, the offices were closed due to inclement weather. We received email submissions of both Warpus Road application as well as the Pleasant View application, and they were added to the agenda in good faith that the actual physical copies and payment would be received at the next opportunity that town offices were open. Warpus Road was submitted with a fee, actually. Today, however, the Pleasant View Avenue application was not submitted to the office, and it would be our staff's recommendation that we do not have an online permitting application process at this time to the commissions, and so the official paper record, and so we would update that this application was not actually submitted to the land use office in a timely fashion and should not be received.
Okay, so we're just receiving the other 3.
Yes.
All right, did anybody have, well, does anybody want to do a site walk on, for any of these, the Lovers Lane, Opening Hill, or Warpus? We can
Well,
just start
first,
with-
do you think it's too late to get a site walk for Cottage?
You know, Joe, I was thinking the same thing, but
Well, I mean, we can have.
I know you wanted one, Kia, way back, I think in November when we received it, or October, but now it's a thing.
I would suggest as staff that those discussions should occur during the public hearing process, the portion of the meeting and not.
Yeah.
All right, then.
That should have been discussed in the public hearing.
Right. You can of course drive by. But
Okay.
for these other two or three, we have Lover's Lane, Opening Hill. So we have, you know, adding a pergola. We have a re-subdivision referral to create an additional lot on Opening Hill. And then we have the Warpus Road, which I will need to recuse myself from because I'm a board member of the Land Trust. So any, you know, we're receiving them, and that's, so we'll just, you know, it's just more, do we need to schedule anything to have a better idea of what we're up, you know,
Yeah,
looking at?
I didn't see anything major that worried me about Lover's Lane. I was actually thinking that could be a section 13 because it's got an agricultural angle to it, but so I don't see a site walk for that one.
Actually,
Orpus Road.
Yeah, I agree with you, Joe. I think I sent it to the agency because it's so close to the wetland, but I agree with you. If it were 51 feet away, I would have done it as a section 13.
Yep.
So it's
So, but without plans to show everybody, we'll keep it on. But I don't think it needed a site walk. And then Warpus Road, it's a standard parking area for Land Trust. I'm not worried about that one, but I can't remember the extent of Opening Hill Road with regards to, oh, now it's coming to me. Yeah, that one didn't scream like it was worrisome either, as far as needing a site walk.
Yeah, I'll be honest, I didn't have a chance to look at the plans, so I'm not going to comment.
Yep. So that's my opinion. I don't think they scream immediate action.
Well,
So it sounds like we just want to accept them for receipt then.
Right.
Correct.
Works for me.
Okay.
So I'll move that we accept all three applications, 2139, 2141, and 2201, and put them on for the February agenda.
7th.
Okay. Busy again. Okay. So Aaron, do you need people to talk about the fee waiver?
Yes.
Okay, well, I'm gonna let Joe take over for that since I don't want to be, I don't want to have anything to do with that application.
Okay, which one is this, Kia?
It's the Warpus Road. It's
The
it's
land trust one, the land trust.
Ah, okay.
So I just have two quick questions. How much would they be and what's the precedence?
Right.
Like, what have we done in the past?
Yeah, the second question was my question, but
I would think that since somebody wants to have the town cover fees, it would be more of a town council thing than us. Because it's coming out of a budget. Well, you know what? It's not really going in the paper, so there's no real expense. Correct, Aaron? But I don't think we waive fees. I would think the council has to.
Is my understanding wrong? We're given the authority to do so, and they've applied for that fee waiver. So it seems to me that unfortunately, whether we want that authority and responsibility, it seems it's in our lap.
well,
John Delore, if Aaron, you have a different take on it, I'm just going from what I think logically is the situation. So if we have different, if somebody has some different knowledge on it, then please speak up.
I can't speak to historically how the commission or how the agency has handled fee waivers. I do believe that that authority does fall under your purview. And it would, I believe it would be $75 is the local fee. Right, John, that's a total of 135, so.
Right, yeah. Yeah, right, we can't waive the DEP fee, so it's just 75.
And do you know what?
I agree, I agree with Aaron. I think you have the authority to waive the fee. As a planning and zoning commission, you know, if the town is doing any kind of work, it doesn't go, you know, to the BOS or any budget committee to waive it. They just, it's just traditionally been waived, you know, because it's either a nonprofit or it's a city or, you know, city project, town project. So I don't recall it going anywhere else other than to the planning and zoning commission with that authority or to the wetlands. And I talked to Bob Cook about that, and he expressed to me that his experience is that, you know, that they've been waived in the past for nonprofit or town projects. So.
Right, I think municipality is one entity, but private nonprofits, it's not necessarily a municipal entity. So that's where the agency would want to consider.
I know there's a regulation where if somebody wanted a refund of their fees, that had to be approved by the Board of Selectmen. So I'm just saying if there's a connection to the selectmen, maybe they're the waivers, but I don't think in my time on this commission, there's ever been a request to waive fees. So I'm a little thrown.
Yeah, I can't remember. John, John, do you remember?
That tells you something right there, doesn't it?
Okay, I say we don't waive them. All right, that's just me being funny at this hour.
I think it's too little to make it an issue, to be perfectly honest with you. I would waive the fee.
I'm with you, Bob. I'm with you, Bob.
I mean, I just think if they have a charitable intent, I mean, why burden them with anything? I mean, it's not a big burden, but, you know, by the time we get done here, I could have billed somebody 75 and given you the money.
If it's a problem, I'll pay for it.
Probably more than that, Bob.
Well, don't give away my trade secrets, Lee.
Well, I'm gonna move that we waive the fee for application 22-01.
Thank you.
I would second it.
And Kayla
All
is
in fa- okay.
recusing herself, so you'll have to
Yeah.
take a general vote here.
So Lee made a motion and Bob seconded. All in favor? I think there's 4 of us.
Aye.
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 Yeah, we need
Okay,
your vote,
motion
Joe.
carries.
Yeah.
Thank you.
The fee is waived.
Right, nice job, guys. All right, so let's see. I think we're on to minutes.
Yep.
So approval of the minutes. Did anybody have any giant comments or small comments? Any comments? My name was spelled wrong part of the way through, but I'm not going to be fussed about it.
Yeah, the only one I have is in the remarks. It says that 5 agency commissioners to take action on items requires that there are 5 agency commissioners present at the meeting. And I think we're saying 4, right? I mean, we had 5 tonight, but I just want to make sure that's right in the remarks.
Right, I think you're right. It's 4, right?
So that 5, that's a pretty substantive.
Yeah,
change.
that's,
Four is your quorum.
yeah, 4 is a quorum. So
That's in the regulations. I mean, you have 5 members, but 4 you have to have 4 there, and 3 could, if 3 voted, you know, we pass that way. You can make a decision because 3 would be but you have to have 4. You can't just have 3 members show up and
Right.
and say the wetlands agency has to have 4. It's
But the
different.
the minutes need to be fixed, I think, or. at
Yes.
least-
Yeah,
at least a note made.
I don't have that page in my minutes, so I don't know what happened, so.
it's,
On the
it's,
very last page,
Yeah, I know. I don't have it.
or next to
Okay.
last page, I guess.
I'll make a note.
yeah, so it's the last, it says, it's in remarks and it says, to have a quorum and take action on items requires that there are 5 agency commissioners. So we only need 4.
You need 4, yeah.
Correct.
Yep.
Okay. Any other things about the
Gonna say, make
minutes?
a motion to approve the minutes.
I
Right.
second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Yeah, speed through this here at the end. All right, then we're on to remarks. I don't have any remarks.
I make a motion, we end the meeting. No, I'm
Whoa,
I'm
whoa,
just kidding. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
John, did you have any remarks?
No, thank you.
Okay, all right, Lee, yes, you've made a motion.
I was just kidding. I make a motion, we close the meeting or end the meeting.
All right,
I'll second
I'll
that.
second that.
okay, I don't think we need any discussion, so all in favor? All right, we will see you guys
Aye.
next month. Same
Happy
time.
New Year, everybody.
Oh, thanks. Happy New
Thank
Year.
you,
job.
fellas. Thank
Good
you,
job,
everyone.
Kia.
Bye.
Bye. Thanks, Kia.
Bye.